The first light of dawn filters through the tall, diamond-paned windows of Master Aldrich's workshop, casting gentle golden patterns across weathered wooden floors. Dust motes dance lazily in the warming air, floating among the countless scrolls and parchments that line every surface of this sanctuary of knowledge. The soft crackle of dying embers in the stone hearth mingles with the distant chirping of sparrows greeting the new day. Master Aldrich moves slowly through his domain, his bare feet silent against the cool planks. His long, silver beard catches the morning light as he pauses beside his great oak desk, running weathered fingers along the smooth edge worn by decades of devoted work. Here, surrounded by compass roses and measuring tools, bottles of ink in shades of azure and emerald, he has spent countless peaceful hours bringing distant worlds to life. The walls around him tell stories without words. Maps cascade from wooden beams like waterfalls of parchment, each one a window into realms of endless summer meadows, crystalline lakes that mirror cloudless skies, and gentle mountains crowned with snow that never melts. These are not the harsh landscapes of conquest or strife, but the soft geography of harmony itself. On his desk lies his masterwork, an atlas bound in supple leather the color of autumn leaves. The brass clasps gleam softly in the growing light, and as Aldrich opens the heavy cover, the pages whisper secrets of far-off kingdoms where peace has reigned for generations uncounted. Each page reveals continents shaped like sleeping giants, archipelagos scattered like fallen stars across tranquil seas, rivers that meander through valleys where time moves as slowly as honey. Aldrich settles into his high-backed chair, upholstered in deep burgundy velvet that has molded perfectly to his form over the years. He reaches for his favorite quill, plucked from a swan that visits the pond behind his workshop each spring. The feather is pristine white, soft as morning mist, and it fits his fingers as naturally as breathing. The first map he turns to shows the whispering shores, where waves lap eternally against beaches of pearl-white sand. Here, coastal villages dot the shoreline like clusters of seashells, their red-tiled roofs warm under perpetual sunshine. Fishermen cast their nets in waters so clear they can count the scales on sleeping fish, and children build castles of coral that never wash away. His fingers trace the careful lines he drew months ago, remembering how he documented each lighthouse, each harbor where merchant ships arrive laden with spices and silk, bringing news of equally peaceful lands beyond the horizon. The lighthouses here don't warn of danger. They simply guide travelers home to warm hearths and welcoming embraces. As the morning sun climbs higher, Aldrich turns another page to reveal the emerald valleys, where rolling hills stretch endlessly under skies painted in shades of lavender and gold. Here, shepherds tend flocks of sheep whose wool grows in natural spirals of cream and silver. Ancient oak trees stand sentinel in meadows where wildflowers bloom in patterns too perfect to be accidental, as if the earth itself were an artist painting with petals and stems. Villages nestle in these valleys like birds in their nests, connected by winding paths lined with stone walls covered in climbing roses. Market squares host festivals that celebrate the changing seasons, and every cottage garden overflows with herbs that fill the air with the scent of rosemary and thyme. The workshop grows warmer as the day progresses, and Aldrich allows himself a moment to simply breathe in the familiar atmosphere of his life's work. The smell of aged paper mingles with the faint aroma of sandalwood from the incense he burns while working late into the night. His collection of glass bottles, filled with inks mixed from flowers and precious stones, catches the light like tiny stained glass windows. On the windowsill, a small potted lavender plant releases its calming fragrance into the still air. Beside it sits a crystal paperweight that refracts the sunlight into tiny rainbows, casting dancing colors across the atlas pages. These simple treasures ground him in this moment, In this peaceful morning, ritual of rediscovering the worlds he has so lovingly preserved, Master Aldrich closes his eyes briefly, listening to the gentle sounds that surround him. The soft tick of his grandfather clock, the whisper of pages settling, the distant sound of a stream that runs behind his workshop, carrying water from mountain springs to the sea. When he opens his eyes again, the atlas seems to glow with inner light, as if the peaceful realms contained within its pages are calling to him, inviting him to continue his sacred work of mapping harmony itself. You settle back as Aldrich's weathered fingers trace across another section of his ancient atlas, pausing at a map painted in soft blues and sandy yellows. The parchment seems to shimmer slightly in the lamplight, as if infused with sea spray and distant melodies. "Ah," he murmurs, his voice carrying the weight of remembered wonder, "the Isle of Singing Sands." The map reveals an island shaped like a crescent moon, floating alone in vast waters. Delicate musical notes dance along the coastlines, drawn in faded ink that seems to pulse with remembered rhythm. As you lean closer, you can almost hear the whisper of waves against shore, the gentle susurrus of sand shifting with the tide. Picture yourself standing on the deck of a small sailing vessel. Aldrich continues, his voice growing softer, more distant. "The morning mist parts before your bow like a curtain being drawn back, and there, emerging from the pearl-gray dawn, lies the Isle of Singing Sands." Your vessel approaches slowly, respectfully, as if understanding that this place demands reverence. The first thing you notice is not the sight of the island, but the sound. A low, harmonious humming drifts across the water, rising and falling with the rhythm of the waves. It's neither quite music nor quite nature, but something perfectly balanced between the two. The beaches stretch before you in gentle curves, their sand a unique crystalline formation that catches and holds the morning light. As each wave rolls in, the grains shift and settle, creating notes that ring out clear and true. Higher waves produce deeper, more resonant tones, while gentle wavelets whisper in soprano frequencies that dance on the sea breeze. Small fishing boats dot the harbor, their hulls painted in soft pastels that complement rather than compete with nature's palette. The fishermen move with unhurried grace, their nets trailing silver threads in the clear water. They cast their lines to the rhythm of the singing shore, their movements synchronized with the island's natural symphony. You step onto the dock, your feet finding the weathered planks that have been worn smooth by countless tides and gentle footsteps. The harbor master greets you with a warm smile but few words, understanding instinctively that this place calls for quiet appreciation rather than bustling conversation. The village winds inland along paths paved with the same crystalline sand that creates the beach's music. Small cottages huddle together like old friends sharing secrets, their walls built from smooth stones gathered from the singing shores. Wind chimes hang from every eave, adding their gentle percussion to the island's endless composition. Children play in the narrow streets, their laughter blending seamlessly with the ambient melody. They've grown up learning to match their voices to the beach's changing moods, creating harmonies that seem to emerge from the very air itself. Their games involve listening, waiting, responding to the subtle shifts in the shore's song. As the day progresses, you wander through the village market, where vendors sell goods to the rhythm of distant waves. The baker kneads dough in time with the ocean's pulse, while the weaver's shuttle moves back and forth like a gentle tide through the loom. Everything here exists in harmony with the island's natural metronome. The afternoon brings a subtle change in the beach's song. As the sun climbs higher, the sand warms, and the notes deepen, becoming more mellow and contemplative. Fishermen return with their catch, their boat songs blending with the shore's hymn as they guide their vessels home. In the early evening, the villagers gather on the beach for their daily communion with the sea. They don't perform so much as participate, adding their voices to the eternal conversation between land and water. Elders hum deep bass notes that resonate with the larger waves, while children add bright harmonies that dance above the melody like seabirds riding the wind. As twilight approaches, the singing sands begin their evening song. The waves grow gentler, more contemplative, and the musical tones shift to softer, more lullaby-like frequencies. The villagers gradually fall silent, content to listen as their island prepares for sleep. You find yourself on the beach as the stars begin to appear, feeling the warm sand beneath your feet, listening to the endless, soothing symphony. Each wave brings a new note, a new harmony, a new verse in an ancient song that has been playing since the island first emerged from the sea. The singing continues through the night, a gentle lullaby that carries dreams on its melody and promises that some places in this world exist purely to remind us of beauty's power to heal and restore the weary soul. You turn the ancient page of the Mapmaker's atlas, and there, drawn in delicate golden ink, spreads the valley of endless orchards. The cartographer has sketched each tree with loving detail, marking paths that wind between rows of fruit-laden branches. A gentle warmth seems to rise from the parchment itself, carrying with it the phantom scent of apple blossoms and sweet pears. The valley lies cradled between rolling hills, protected from harsh winds by natural stone walls covered in climbing vines. As you follow the map's guidance in your mind's eye, you find yourself walking along a moss-covered path that leads down into this hidden sanctuary. The air grows softer with each step, perfumed with the constant bloom of countless fruit trees that know no season. Here, in this blessed place, spring and autumn dance together in eternal harmony. Cherry trees heavy with ruby fruit stand beside others bursting with delicate pink flowers. Apple trees offer their crisp harvest, while their neighbors display clouds of white blossoms that drift like gentle snow in the warm breeze. Pear trees bend gracefully under the weight of golden fruit, their leaves a tapestry of green that never quite turns to amber, never quite fades. The people of the valley move among these trees like tender guardians of paradise. Their faces are sun-kissed and peaceful, their hands gentle as they gather fruit in woven baskets. They speak in soft voices that blend with the hum of bees and the whisper of leaves. Their clothing is simple and natural linen, dyed in the soft colors of fruit blossoms, with wide-brimmed hats to shade their eyes from the perpetual golden sunshine. You watch as they tend their orchards with quiet devotion. A woman with silver-streaked hair carefully props up a branch heavy with peaches, her movements slow and deliberate, filled with love for each tree. Children play between the rows, their laughter mixing with the gentle lowing of cream-colored cows that graze in nearby meadows dotted with wildflowers. The valley's rhythm is marked not by the harsh tick of clocks, but by the gentle turning of harvest festivals that flow one into another like a river of celebration. Today, perhaps, they gather beneath the plum trees, their tables spread with simple wooden bowls filled with fruit so perfect it seems painted by angels. Purple plums glisten beside golden apricots and blushing peaches. The juice runs sweet and cool, and every bite carries the essence of sunshine and rich earth. Tomorrow, the celebration might move to the apple groves, where the trees offer varieties unknown in the outside world. Some apples taste of honey and spice, others of cool mountain streams. The people share their bounty with open hands, their faces lit with the simple joy of abundance, freely given and gratefully received. As evening approaches in the valley, the light takes on a quality all its own. The setting sun filters through leaves and branches, casting everything in warm amber and gold. Lanterns made from hollow gourds begin to glow along the pathways, each one reflecting like a gentle star in the still ponds that dot the landscape. These waters mirror the fruit trees perfectly, creating a doubled paradise where reality and reflection merge in peaceful harmony. The evening meal is always a feast here, the though no grand preparation is needed. Tables appear beneath the trees, as naturally as the fruit itself rough-hewn, wood polished smooth by countless gatherings. The valley's children help carry platters of cheese made from the milk of contented goats, warm bread that captures the essence of grain kissed by this perfect climate, and honey so pure and golden it seems to hold captured sunlight. The people eat slowly, savoring each bite, sharing stories that flow like gentle streams from one generation to the next. Their tales are not of great adventures or distant lands, but of small miracles. The day the oldest pear tree bloomed twice in one season, the morning when the bees created a hive in the shape of a heart, the gentle rain that fell for exactly the time needed and not a moment more. As night settles over the valley of endless orchards, the air remains warm and sweet. Night-blooming jasmine joins its perfume to the eternal fruit blossoms, creating a fragrance so beautiful it could lull the most restless soul to peaceful sleep. The people retire to their simple cottages, built from valley stone and crowned with roofs of living vines. You close the atlas gently, but the valley remains with you. In your dreams, you walk those endless paths between fruit trees that know neither disease nor death, where every harvest is perfect and every season brings its own quiet joy. The valley of endless orchards lives on, a place where time moves as slowly as honey, and peace flows as abundantly as the eternal harvest of these blessed trees. The morning mist clung to the lake's surface like a silk veil as Aldrich approached the floating gardens of serenity. His weathered fingers traced the delicate lines on his map, where clusters of emerald circles dotted the azure expanse of Lake Murrayloth. Each mark represented an island that shouldn't exist, gardens that floated like dreams upon the water. As the sun climbed higher, the mist began to lift, revealing a sight that made Aldrich's breath catch in his throat. Hundreds of circular gardens drifted across the lake's glassy surface, connected by narrow bridges that swayed gently with each ripple. Willow trees trailed their fingers in the water, their roots drinking deeply from the lake, while their branches created natural canopies over small cottages nestled among the greenery. A soft splash drew his attention as a narrow boat glided toward the shore. The woman who poled it moved with the fluid grace of someone born to water. Her skin was bronzed by sun and spray, her dark hair adorned with small white flowers that seemed to glow against the morning light. She wore robes of deep blue-green that rippled like water itself. "Welcome, traveler," she said, her voice carrying the gentle cadence of lapping waves. "I am Nerida, keeper of the seventh garden. Your map has led you to our peaceful realm." Aldrich stepped carefully into the boat, feeling it rock beneath him with the tender motion of a cradle. As Nerida pushed off from shore, he found himself entering a world unlike any he had charted before. The boat moved silently through channels between the floating gardens, each island a masterpiece of cultivation and care. "Our ancestors came here 500 years ago," Nerida explained, her pole creating barely a whisper as it sliced through the water. "They were refugees from the great drought that claimed the eastern valleys. When they found this lake, they discovered something remarkable. The water here has properties that allow plants to grow without soil, their roots drawing sustenance directly from the lake itself." They passed beneath a living archway where morning glories twisted around bamboo frames, their trumpet flowers releasing a sweet perfume that mingled with the clean scent of water. On the garden beyond, Aldrich could see people tending to rows of vegetables that grew in floating beds made of woven reeds. Children played among tall stalks of water rice, their laughter echoing softly across the lake. "Each family tends their own garden island," Nerida continued, guiding the boat through a grove of floating fruit trees heavy with golden pears. "We grow everything we need. Grains that thrive in moisture, vegetables that love the constant humidity, fruits that grow sweeter when their roots touch water. Nothing is wasted, nothing is hurried." The boat drifted past an island where an elderly man sat cross-legged among lotus blossoms, his eyes closed in meditation. Butterflies with wings like stained glass settled on his shoulders as he breathed in rhythm with the gentle lapping of waves. Nearby, a woman wove baskets from water reeds while her feet dangled in the lake, occasionally wiggling her toes to attract the small silver fish that cleaned algae from the garden foundations. Time moves differently here, Nerida said, noticing how Aldrich's shoulders had begun to relax. We follow the rhythm of the lake, rising with the sun's first touch on the water, resting when the evening stars begin to reflect on the surface. Our days flow like the lake itself, smooth and unhurried. They entered a canal lined with floating flower beds where water lilies opened their faces to the afternoon sun. The air was thick with the drowsy hum of bees moving from bloom to bloom, their work creating a lullaby that seemed to slow Aldrich's very heartbeat. Here and there, couples sat together on small platforms, sharing simple meals of lake fish and water grains, speaking in voices so soft they barely disturbed the air. Our greatest discovery, Nerida said as they approached the center of the lake, was not how to make plants grow on water, but how to make our souls grow in peace. When your foundation is always moving, always adapting, you learn to find stillness within yourself. In the heart of the lake stood the largest island, a communal garden where all the families gathered for their evening meals. Lanterns made from large, translucent gourds cast a warm, golden glow over the water, their light dancing with the first stars that appeared in the darkening sky. The sound of gentle conversations mixed with the soft plashing of oars and the distant call of water birds returning to their nests among the reeds. As night settled over the floating gardens of serenity, Aldrich felt something he had not experienced in years of map-making, the profound peace that comes from being perfectly, completely still, while the world gently rocks you towards sleep. The mapmaker's quill traces delicate lines across parchment, revealing a cross-section of the earth itself. Below rolling hills dotted with wildflowers, the paper unfolds into something extraordinary, a network of crystalline caverns that stretch deep into the mountain's heart. Each chamber pulses with a soft, ethereal glow, and tiny figures move through the passages like notes on a musical staff. You follow the mapmaker's careful descent down winding stone steps, each footfall echoing softly in the growing darkness. The air grows cooler as sunlight fades behind you, replaced by something far more magical. The walls begin to shimmer, and as your eyes adjust, you realize the stone itself is alive with light, thousands upon thousands of crystals embedded in the cave walls, each one glowing with its own gentle radiance. The first whisper reaches your ears before you see its source. A crystal near your shoulder hums with a low, resonant tone as you pass, responding to your presence with a sound like distant wind chimes. Another answers from across the passage, then another, until the entire corridor fills with a symphony of gentle harmonics. The crystals are singing to each other, and to you. Deeper into the caves, the passages open into vast chambers where entire communities have made their homes. The architecture here doesn't fight against the stone. It flows with it, carved dwellings that follow the natural curves of the cavern walls. Doorways arch gracefully between crystal formations, and staircases spiral around massive stone pillars that glitter with embedded gems. The people who live here move with deliberate grace, their voices soft and measured. You watch as a woman speaks to her neighbor across a crystal-lined courtyard, her words carried not just through the air, but through the very stone itself. The crystals along the walls pick up her voice, transforming it into something musical, passing it from formation to formation until it reaches its destination as both message and melody. Children play in alcoves where the crystals cluster thickest, their laughter becoming a tinkling percussion that dances through the caverns. They've learned to modulate their voices, turning simple games into impromptu concerts. Hide-and-seek becomes a symphony of whispered clues, each child's location revealed not by sight, but by the unique harmonic signature their voice creates in different parts of the cave. In the market squares carved into natural amphitheaters, merchants call their wares in gentle tones that the crystals amplify and beautify. The seller of woven fabrics finds her voice transformed into something silky and warm, while the baker's announcements carry the comfort of his fresh bread through harmonic undertones that make your mouth water. Every transaction becomes a duet between buyer and seller, their negotiations turned into peaceful music by the cave's natural acoustics. You discover workshops where artisans have learned to work with the crystal's song. A potter shapes clay while humming softly, the crystals around her wheel responding with complementary tones that help her find the perfect rhythm for her work. Nearby, a metalsmith times his hammer strikes to match the cave's resonance, creating tools and jewelry while contributing to an ongoing percussion that never grows harsh or jarring. The community's gathering spaces are marvels of acoustic architecture. In the great hall where they share evening meals, every conversation blends into a gentle murmur that the crystals transform into something soothing and harmonious. Laughter doesn't echo harshly. It becomes warm waves of sound that embrace everyone present. Even arguments, when they arise, are softened by the crystals into discussions that sound more like music than conflict. As evening deepens in the world above, the crystal caves grow more luminous. The gems respond to darkness by increasing their glow, ensuring the caverns never fall into true night. Families gather in their crystal-lined homes, where bedtime stories become lullabies without effort. Parents' voices, carried and harmonized by the surrounding stones, weave tales that seem to emerge from the very heart of the mountain. The Mapmaker's drawing shows passages that stretch on for miles, connecting chamber after chamber of this underground symphony. Some tunnels lead to underground lakes, where the crystal's reflections double their light and music. Others open into cathedral-sized spaces, where the community gathers for celebrations that become concerts lasting through the night. Hundreds of voices joining with thousands of crystals in harmonies that could make angels weep with joy. You settle into a quiet alcove where smaller crystals cluster like stars around a natural stone seat. As you rest, their gentle humming wraps around you like a blanket, each tone calibrated to promote deep relaxation. The community's distant conversations blend into a peaceful murmur, their words transformed by crystal song into the most soothing lullaby you've ever heard. In this place where every whisper becomes music and every voice joins an eternal harmony, sleep comes naturally, carried by the endless, gentle symphony of the crystal caves. The morning mist clings to the edges of the shepherd's plateau like a soft, silvery blanket, slowly lifting as the first rays of sunlight pierce through the thin mountain air. Here, at 8,000 feet above the distant valleys, the world stretches endlessly in all directions, a vast expanse of emerald grassland that seems to touch the very edges of the sky. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the crisp, clean air that carries the sweet scent of highland flowers and the gentle musk of the grazing herds. The silence is profound, broken only by the whispered conversations of wind through grass and the soft chiming of bells that hang from the necks of creatures, unlike any you've seen before. The shepherds call them cloudweavers, and watching them now, you understand why. Their wool is not quite white, not quite silver, but something in between, a lustrous fiber that catches the light and seems to shimmer with its own inner glow. They move with deliberate grace across the plateau, their hooves making barely a sound on the springy turf, their large, dark eyes reflecting a wisdom that seems ancient beyond measure. Kale, the shepherd who has welcomed you to join this morning's migration, walks beside you with the unhurried pace of someone who has learned to move with the rhythm of the seasons themselves. His weathered face bears the permanent tan of high-altitude sun and wind, but his eyes are kind, crinkling at the corners with the accumulated laughter of many years spent in this peaceful wilderness. The Cloudweavers know the way. He tells you, his voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might disturb the profound tranquility of this place. We simply follow where they lead us. They can sense the sweetest grasses, the purest streams, the safest sheltered valleys when the storms come down from the peaks. The herd moves as one living entity, perhaps 300 creatures flowing like water across the undulating grassland. Young ones stay close to their mothers, their smaller bells creating a higher, more delicate music. The lead animals, their horns curved and polished by years of weather, pause occasionally to test the air, their nostrils flaring as they read messages in the wind that remain mysterious to human senses. As you walk, the sun climbs higher, warming your shoulders and casting long shadows that dance and shift with each footstep. The plateau reveals itself slowly, rolling hills that seem to go on forever, dotted with clusters of yellow wildflowers that nod gently in the breeze. In the distance, you can see other herds, other shepherds, all following their own ancient paths across this timeless landscape. The Cloudweavers pause to graze, and you stop with them, settling onto a small rise covered in soft moss. From here, you can see the true vastness of the plateau. It stretches to every horizon, a sea of green broken only by the occasional silver thread of a stream catching the light. Above, clouds drift lazily across a sky, so blue it seems almost painted, their shadows racing across the grassland in patterns that shift and change like living art. Kale settles beside you, pulling a simple wooden flute from his pack. The melody he plays is older than memory, passed down through generations of shepherds who have walked these same paths, followed these same migrations. The music seems to harmonize with the bells of the Cloudweavers, creating a symphony that speaks of patience, of lives lived in perfect rhythm with the natural world. This is the third migration this season, Kale explains, his fingers still moving over the flute's holes. Spring took us to the eastern meadows, summer brought us to the northern valleys, and now autumn calls us toward the southern slopes where the grass stays green longest and the shelter is deepest. The Cloudweavers raise their heads as if listening to the music, their ears twitching forward with interest. Some of the younger ones approach, curious and unafraid, allowing you to feel the incredible softness of their wool, warm from the sun, and carrying the clean scent of highland air. As the afternoon progresses, the herd begins to move again, following some invisible signal that only they understand. You walk with them, feeling the stress and hurry of the modern world falling away with each step across this ancient plateau. Here, time moves differently, measured not in minutes or hours, but in seasons and migrations, in the slow turning of the earth and the patient wisdom of creatures who have learned to live in perfect harmony with the world around them. The setting sun paints the grassland in shades of gold and amber, and the Cloudweaver's wool seems to capture and hold the light, transforming them into living lanterns scattered across the peaceful plateau. Their bells chime softly in the evening air, a lullaby that speaks of contentment, of home found not in any single place, but in the endless, gentle journey itself. The seventh map in Aldrich's collection unfolds like a whispered secret, revealing delicate lines that form the most extraordinary city you've ever seen. The library city of whispered knowledge spreads across the parchment in gentle curves and careful detail, each street meticulously drawn with the tender precision of someone who understood that knowledge itself could be a living, breathing place. As you trace your finger along the map's pathways, you find yourself transported to cobblestone streets that wind between buildings unlike any in the ordinary world. Here, architecture serves only one sacred purpose: the preservation and sharing of wisdom. The morning mist clings to the rooftops, each one designed with special gutters and overhangs to protect the precious contents within from even the gentlest rain. The first building you encounter is the herbarium library, its walls lined with pressed flowers and botanical illustrations that seem to glow in the soft dawn light. The windows are tall and narrow, designed to let in just enough illumination to read by without fading the delicate pigments of ancient manuscripts. Through the glass, you glimpse rows upon rows of carefully cataloged plant specimens, each one accompanied by handwritten notes in a dozen different scripts. Moving deeper into the city, your footsteps are naturally muffled by the thick carpets of fallen leaves that the inhabitants have deliberately left undisturbed. These streets know the value of quiet. The sound of your breathing mingles with the gentle rustle of pages turning somewhere in the distance, creating a symphony so soft it's barely perceptible. A scholar passes by, her arms cradled around a stack of scrolls tied with silk ribbons. She nods to you with a warm smile that speaks volumes without disturbing the peaceful atmosphere. Her robes are the color of aged parchment, and small ink stains on her fingers tell the story of countless hours spent copying and preserving texts from distant lands. She moves with the unhurried grace of someone who knows that true knowledge cannot be rushed. The poetry pavilion stands at the next corner, its walls made entirely of glass so thin and clear that the building seems to shimmer like a soap bubble. Inside, manuscripts hang from silken threads, rotating slowly in the gentle air currents. Each poem catches the light differently, creating patterns of shadow and illumination that dance across the reading tables where other scholars sit in contemplative silence. As you continue through Aldrich's mapped city, you discover the Tower of Translated Tongues, where scribes work tirelessly to bridge the gaps between languages. The spiral staircase that winds around the tower's exterior is lined with samples of text in scripts you've never seen before, flowing characters that look like water, angular symbols that resemble crystalline formations, and pictographs that tell entire stories in a single glance. The soft chiming of bells draws your attention to the memory garden at the heart of the city. Here, stone benches are positioned between carefully tended beds of sage and rosemary, plants chosen for their legendary ability to enhance memory and concentration. Elderly scholars sit quietly, some reading aloud in whispered tones to preserve the oral traditions that might otherwise be lost to time. You pause beside a fountain carved from white stone, its gentle trickling designed to provide just enough ambient sound to mask the occasional cough or shuffling of papers without becoming a distraction. The water flows over carved symbols representing different branches of knowledge: astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, history, all flowing together into a single, unified stream. The map repository stands before you now, a circular building with no corners where dust might gather, and no sharp angles where precious documents might catch and tear. Through its open doorway, you see Aldrich himself, much younger in this vision, carefully sketching the very map you've been following. He looks up from his work and offers you the same gentle smile as the scholar who passed you earlier, as if to say that all knowledge belongs to everyone, and every curious soul is welcome here. As the sun reaches its highest point, the city settles into its quietest hour. The inhabitants understand the rhythm of scholarship, the importance of rest, reflection, and the peaceful contemplation that allows wisdom to truly take root. Somewhere in the distance, a scribe carefully blots fresh ink, and the sound is as soft as a sigh. The library city of whispered knowledge breathes around you now, alive with the quiet contentment of a place where every book is treasured, every scroll is honored, and every piece of wisdom, no matter how small, has found its perfect home. In Aldrich's careful lines, you've discovered not just a city, but a sanctuary where knowledge itself rests peacefully, protected and preserved for all the dreamers yet to come. As you turn the weathered pages of the ancient atlas, your fingers trace the delicate contours of what the Mapmaker has labeled the terraced hills of golden grain. The parchment here is slightly yellowed with age, but the ink remains vibrant, showing rolling hills carved into perfect steps that cascade down like a golden waterfall frozen in time. Each terrace is outlined with the finest pen strokes, creating patterns that seem to shimmer and dance in the candlelight as you study them closely. The map begins to breathe with life as you lean closer, and suddenly you find yourself standing at the edge of these magnificent terraced hills. The early morning mist clings gently to the valleys below, and the first rays of sunlight paint the endless rows of grain in shades of amber and honey. The air is sweet with the scent of ripening wheat, barley, and ancient grains, whose names have been whispered through generations of careful farmers. Below you, the hillsides unfold like a vast quilted blanket, each terrace perfectly level and bordered by low stone walls worn smooth by countless seasons. The grain stalks sway gently in the morning breeze, creating waves of gold that ripple across the landscape in mesmerizing patterns. You can hear the soft rustling of thousands of grain heads nodding together, a sound like distant rainfall on leaves. Walking down the narrow stone paths that wind between the terraces, you notice how each level has been crafted with extraordinary care. The farmers who tend these fields have shaped the very bones of the earth, transforming steep hillsides into productive gardens through generations of patient work. Their hands have moved countless stones, carried endless baskets of soil, and planted millions of seeds to create this living masterpiece. In the distance, you spot a group of farmers beginning their morning work. They move with unhurried grace, their tools glinting in the golden light as they check the grain for readiness. Their voices carry softly across the terraces, speaking in gentle tones about the weather, the soil, and the perfect timing of the coming harvest. These are people who understand the rhythm of seasons, who read the language of clouds and wind with the wisdom of their ancestors. The terraces themselves tell stories written in stone and soil. Some are wide and expansive, perfect for the long rows of wheat that stretch like golden ribbons across their breadth. Others are narrow and intimate, planted with heritage grains that grow in dense, jewel-like clusters. Each terrace catches and holds the morning dew, the afternoon rain, and the evening mist, creating perfect growing conditions through the ancient art of water management. As you continue your peaceful journey through this agricultural wonderland, you begin to notice the subtle artistry in every detail. The farmers haven't simply created functional growing spaces, they've painted with grain and stone, sculpted with earth and water. The patterns they've created are as beautiful as any tapestry, with different varieties of grain creating natural mosaics across the hillsides. Children appear on the paths, carrying small baskets and learning the ancient ways from their elders. They move quietly through the grain, their small hands gentle as they examine the ripening stalks. Their laughter is soft and musical, blending harmoniously with the whisper of wind through the endless rows of gold. The sun climbs higher, warming your shoulders as you pause to rest on one of the stone walls that border the terraces. From this vantage point, you can see how the entire valley has been transformed into a work of art. The terraces follow the natural contours of the hills, while creating perfect geometric patterns that please the eye and nourish the soul. Butterflies dance among the grain stalks, their wings catching the light as they move from flower to flower. Bees hum contentedly as they work the wildflowers that grow along the terrace borders, adding their gentle music to the peaceful symphony of this cultivated paradise. The air shimmers with warmth and abundance, carrying the promise of the coming harvest festival when the entire community will celebrate another year of careful tending and patient growth. As evening approaches, the golden grain takes on an even richer glow, and you can hear the farmers beginning their journey home, their voices fading gently into the distance. The terraced hills settle into peaceful quiet, the grain continuing its ancient dance with the evening breeze, growing ever so slightly with each passing moment toward perfect ripeness. The mapmaker's careful lines seem to pulse with contentment as you return to the atlas, the terraced hills holding their golden secret safe within the pages, waiting patiently for the next dreamer to discover their peaceful beauty and timeless wisdom. The village of eternal twilight reveals itself gradually as you follow the ancient stone path down into the valley. Here, in this forgotten pocket of the world, the sun hangs suspended in perpetual golden hour, casting everything in warm amber light that seems to breathe with its own gentle rhythm. The air shimmers with a quality you've never experienced before, neither the brightness of full day nor the darkness of true night, but something altogether more magical. It's as if time itself has slowed to a whisper, allowing this moment of perfect illumination to stretch endlessly across the landscape. Cottages with thatched roofs dot the hillsides like sleeping animals, their windows glowing softly from within. Smoke rises lazily from chimneys, creating delicate spirals that dissolve into the honey-colored sky. Gardens overflow with flowers that seem to glow from within, lavender and roses, jasmine and honeysuckle all blooming simultaneously in this place, where seasons blend into one eternal, gentle moment. The villagers move with an unhurried grace that matches their extraordinary surroundings. A baker kneads dough in her doorway, her movements slow and meditative, as if she has all the time in the world, which, in a sense, she does. Children play quietly in the village square, their laughter soft as wind chimes, their games unhurried and dreamy. You notice how different life feels here, where there's no morning rush or evening deadline. Without the urgency that sunrise and sunset typically bring, the villagers have discovered a rhythm all their own. They work when inspired, rest when tired, gather when drawn to companionship. Their days flow like honey, thick and golden and impossibly sweet. An elderly woman tends to her herb garden, her silver hair catching the eternal light like spun moonbeams. She moves between rows of sage and rosemary, thyme and chamomile, speaking to each plant in gentle whispers. When she notices you watching, she smiles and beckons you closer, her eyes twinkling with the warmth of perpetual sunset. "Welcome, traveler," she says, her voice carrying the soft cadence of someone who has never needed to hurry. "You've found our little sanctuary, where time forgets to count itself." She plucks a sprig of lavender and offers it to you, its scent impossibly rich in the golden air. The village market operates unlike any you've ever seen. Vendors arrange their wares with artistic precision, baskets of fruit that seem to glow from within, bolts of fabric that catch the light like captured sunbeams, pottery glazed in shades that shift between gold and amber and bronze. There's no urgent calling of prices, no hurried transactions. Instead, there's quiet conversation, gentle bartering, the kind of unhurried exchange that builds friendships rather than simply completing sales. Musicians gather in the village center, their instruments creating melodies that float through the air like visible things. A flute weaves silver threads of sound, while a guitar adds warm, golden tones. Their music has no beginning or end, simply continuing in endless, peaceful variations that seem to match the eternal light itself. You find yourself drawn to a small cafe where people sit at tables carved from ancient oak, sipping tea that steams gently in ceramic cups. The conversations here flow like slow rivers deep, meandering discussions about dreams and philosophies, about the stories told by clouds and the wisdom found in silence. No one checks timepieces because there are no timepieces to check. No one rushes because there's nowhere urgent to be. The schoolhouse stands open, its doors welcoming any who wish to learn. Children and adults sit together on cushions, listening to a teacher who speaks of history and mathematics, poetry and star patterns, all delivered in the same gentle, unhurried tone. Learning here isn't about racing toward graduation, but about savoring each moment of discovery. As you wander through this extraordinary place, you begin to understand how the absence of traditional time has gifted these people with something precious, the ability to truly be present. Their conversations linger because there's no next appointment calling. Their meals are savored because there's no schedule demanding they finish quickly. Their sleep comes naturally when tiredness arrives, not when clocks dictate. The eternal twilight wraps around everything like a soft blanket, creating a world where stress cannot take root and urgency has no meaning. Here, in this golden valley, you discover what life might feel like if it were lived entirely in moments of peace, each one flowing seamlessly into the next like notes in an endless, beautiful song. The village of eternal twilight isn't just a place on your Mapmaker's atlas. It's a reminder that time, as precious as it is, becomes even more beautiful when it learns to move slowly, gently, like light through honey. The ancient parchment crackles softly as you unfold another section of the Mapmaker's extraordinary atlas. Here, along the eastern margins, delicate blue ink traces the curves of a coastline unlike any other. The cartographer's careful hand has marked this place simply as the Weaver's Coast. And as your fingers trace the gentle arc of bays and inlets, you can almost hear the rhythmic sound of waves meeting shore. The map reveals a civilization that has found perfect harmony between land and sea. Small symbols dot the coastline, tiny looms and spindles drawn with exquisite detail, indicating workshops that have stood for countless generations. The Mapmaker has used the finest azure pigments to show the crystal-clear waters, and you notice how the sea itself seems to shimmer with threads of silver and gold, as if the ocean carries its own textile treasures. You close your eyes and let the atlas transport you to this peaceful realm. The morning sun rises slowly over the Weaver's Coast, painting the sky in soft pastels that reflect perfectly in the calm waters. The air is filled with the gentle symphony of waves rolling onto smooth, pebbled beaches, creating a rhythm that has guided the work of these master craftspeople for centuries. Along the shoreline, workshops built from weathered driftwood and white stone face the endless ocean. Their doors stand open to catch the sea breeze, and from within comes the soft, hypnotic sound of looms at work. The clicking and clacking creates a meditative melody that blends seamlessly with the whisper of waves against the shore. You walk barefoot along the warm sand, approaching one of these peaceful workshops. Inside, you discover families who have perfected the ancient art of weaving sea silk. Their gentle hands work with materials that few have ever imagined. Delicate fibers harvested from kelp forests that sway in the underwater gardens just beyond the coast. These ocean plants, nurtured by generations of careful tending, produce threads finer than any spider's silk, stronger than the finest linen. An elderly weaver looks up from her loom and smiles, her weathered hands never pausing in their ancient rhythm. Her fingers move like water itself, guiding threads that shimmer with the colors of sunrise on waves, pearl white, soft coral, and the palest green of shallow tidal pools. The fabric taking shape beneath her skilled touch seems to breathe with the very essence of the sea. Children play quietly in the corners of the workshop, learning the patience and precision their craft requires by watching their elders. They sort the dried sea plants by color and texture, their small hands already understanding the subtle differences that will one day make them masters. The knowledge passes from grandmother to mother to daughter, from grandfather to father to son, in an unbroken chain that stretches back through countless tides. The finished textiles hang like captured sunsets along the workshop walls. Some shimmer with the deep blues of ocean depths, while others glow with the golden light of dawn breaking over water. The patterns woven into each piece tell stories, spirals that mirror seashells, flowing lines that echo the movement of waves, and delicate motifs inspired by the sea creatures that dance in the shallows. As afternoon arrives, the weavers pause their work for a simple meal, shared in comfortable silence. They sit on wooden benches worn smooth by generations of use, looking out through open doorways at the endless expanse of ocean that provides both their inspiration and their livelihood. The sea breeze carries the scent of salt and seaweed, mingling with the earthy smell of the plant fibers that dry in careful bundles along the workshop walls. The rhythmic sound of the looms resumes, creating a lullaby that seems to synchronize with your own breathing. Each click of the shuttle, each gentle pull of the thread, becomes part of a meditation that has continued unbroken for hundreds of years. The weavers work not with urgency, but with the patient persistence of the tides themselves. As evening approaches and the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, the workshops fill with a golden light that makes every thread gleam like precious metal. The ocean grows calmer still, its surface becoming a mirror that reflects the deepening colors of the sky. The sound of the looms grows softer, more dreamlike, as if the very air has become thick with peace. The Mapmaker's atlas whispers of many more wonders yet to be discovered. But for now, you let yourself be carried away by the gentle rhythm of the weaver's coast. The sound of distant waves and clicking looms creates a symphony of serenity that follows you into dreams, where threads of sea silk weave themselves into visions of endless, peaceful shores. The ancient map unfurls before you like a whispered secret, its edges worn soft by countless hands. Here, marked in faded amber ink, lies the desert oasis of gentle winds, a sanctuary hidden deep within the vast expanse of golden sand. Your fingers trace the delicate lines that lead through dune after dune, following the Mapmaker's careful notations toward this promised refuge. As you approach the oasis on your imagined journey, the first thing you notice is not the sight of palm fronds or the glimmer of water, but the sound. A soft, musical humming that seems to rise from the very stones themselves. The wind here moves differently than in the open desert. Instead of the harsh, driving gusts that scour the dunes, these breezes flow like gentle rivers through carved channels in the ancient sandstone. The inhabitants of this place understood something profound about the desert's nature. They did not fight against the heat and wind, but learned to dance with them, to guide them into patterns of cooling relief. Carved into the living rock are intricate networks of channels and chambers, each one perfectly angled to catch the slightest breath of air and transform it into a cooling current. You step into the shade of the first archway, feeling the temperature drop by precious degrees. The stone beneath your feet is smooth and cool, worn by generations of travelers who have found their way here. Water trickles somewhere nearby, not the rushing sound of a river, but the gentle murmur of careful irrigation, each drop precious and purposefully directed. Gardens unfold before you in terraced levels, each one a masterpiece of desert engineering. Date palms sway gently overhead, their fronds whispering secrets to the wind. Below them, herbs and flowering plants grow in neat rows, their roots drawing sustenance from channels that carry water from the central springs. The air smells of jasmine and mint, of earth that has been lovingly tended despite the harsh climate that surrounds this sanctuary. Other travelers rest in the shade of carved pavilions, their faces peaceful with the relief of arrival. Some are merchants whose caravans wait patiently at the oasis's edge, their camels drinking deeply from stone troughs. Others are pilgrims, drawn by stories of this place's tranquility. All move slowly here, as if the very air encourages contemplation and rest. An elderly woman tends a small garden of desert roses, her weathered hands gentle as she guides water from a narrow channel to each plant's roots. She looks up and nods as you pass, her smile warm with the universal recognition shared between travelers. No words are needed in this place, where the language of hospitality flows as naturally as the cooling breezes. You find yourself drawn to a central courtyard, where a fountain sends delicate sprays of water into the air. The droplets catch the filtered sunlight that falls through palm fronds, creating tiny rainbows that dance and shift with each gentle gust. The sound of falling water mingles with the distant chiming of wind bells hung from the carved eaves of surrounding buildings. Here, the ancient architects created something miraculous: rooms that breathe. Air flows through the spaces in carefully planned patterns, drawing heat up and out while pulling cool air down through shaded passages. You settle into a niche carved into the wall, feeling the stone's coolness against your back and the gentle movement of air across your face. As evening approaches, the desert beyond begins its transformation from blazing gold to soft purple. But within the oasis, the temperature remains perfectly balanced. Lanterns flicker to life, their warm glow reflecting off polished stone surfaces and the gentle movement of water. The mapmaker who recorded this place understood its true treasure: not just the water that sustains life, but the wisdom embedded in every carved channel and carefully planned archway. This oasis represents generations of knowledge, passed down through families who made the desert their home and learned its deepest secrets. As you rest in this sanctuary of gentle winds, feeling the day's heat slowly leave your body, you understand why the mapmaker marked this place with such reverence. Here, in the heart of one of Earth's most challenging environments, human ingenuity and nature's forces have found perfect harmony. The night air carries the scent of cooling stone and the soft laughter of fellow travelers sharing stories around distant fires. Your eyes grow heavy as the gentle breezes continue their eternal circulation through the carved channels, a lullaby of moving air that has soothed countless souls across the centuries. The night air drifts through Aldrich's study window, carrying with it the gentle fragrance of jasmine from the garden below. He sets down his quill and stretches his fingers, ink stained from hours of careful cartography. The atlas before him lies open to the most recent addition, a detailed map of the Crystal Valleys, where amethyst formations create natural amphitheaters that sing in harmony with the wind. Aldrich leans back in his worn leather chair and gazes out at the star-filled sky. The moon, a perfect crescent tonight, casts silver light across his desk, illuminating the edges of the ancient pages. He can hear the soft rustle of leaves in the oak tree beyond his window, a sound that has accompanied his work for countless evenings, just like this one. His eyes trace over the maps he has lovingly recreated during these past weeks. Each realm holds its own gentle magic, its own quiet wonders. There is the Isle of Singing Sands, where the beaches hum lullabies to visiting sailors. The meadows of eternal spring, where flowers bloom in perfect cycles, never wilting, never fading, just transforming gracefully from one beautiful form to another. He remembers the floating gardens of serenity, where ancient gardeners tend to crops that grow in midair, suspended by nothing more than the pure intentions of those who plant them. The people there move with such unhurried grace, their days flowing like calm rivers from sunrise to sunset. They harvest fruits that taste like concentrated sunshine and vegetables that seem to hold the essence of rainfall within their tender flesh. A gentle breeze stirs the curtains, and Aldrich closes his eyes for a moment, allowing himself to truly feel the peace that surrounds him. In his mind's eye, he can see the Valley of Whispering Stones, where ancient monoliths share stories with anyone patient enough to listen. The tales they tell are not of wars or conquests, but of the slow, beautiful dance of seasons, of animals finding shelter, of seeds taking root and growing into mighty trees over centuries. He opens his eyes and looks again at the atlas. The twilight forests beckon to him from the next section, their pages waiting to be explored. These are woods where the light never quite fades to complete darkness, where travelers can walk safely along paths lined with luminescent moss. The trees there grow slowly, deliberately, each branch positioned with the patience of decades, creating natural archways and quiet clearings perfect for rest and reflection. Beyond that, he can glimpse the edges of the harmonic plains, where the very grass grows in patterns that create gentle music when the wind passes over them. Shepherds there tend flocks of sheep whose wool changes color with the seasons. Soft whites in winter, tender greens in spring, golden yellows in summer, and rich browns in autumn. The shepherds themselves have learned to walk in rhythm with the land's natural melody, their footsteps adding percussion to the earth's quiet symphony. Aldrich reaches for his teacup, finding the chamomile blend still warm despite the late hour. The ceramic holds heat the way the atlas holds wonder, seemingly without effort, naturally, as if this is simply how things are meant to be. He takes a slow sip and tastes honey harvested from bees that pollinate only night-blooming flowers, their sweetness carrying hints of moonlight and starshine. The clock in the hallway chimes midnight, its sound muffled and distant. Aldrich has been working longer than he realized, but he feels no fatigue, only a deep sense of contentment. Tomorrow, he will continue his journey through the Atlas, exploring more peaceful realms where kindness flows as freely as clear water from mountain springs. He thinks of the library of living books he encountered earlier, where the stories literally grow on trees, and readers simply pluck a ripe tale when they need comfort or wisdom. The librarians, there are patient beings who speak only in whispers, ensuring that the growing stories are never disturbed by harsh sounds. A yawn escapes him, gentle and natural, like a flower opening its petals to the dawn. The atlas seems to pulse softly with its own quiet energy, as if encouraging him to rest, to dream, to let his mind wander freely through all the peaceful places he has mapped and all the gentle wonders yet to be discovered. Aldrich carefully closes the atlas, his hand lingering on the worn leather cover. The night calls to him now, promising dreams filled with harmonious lands and the soft sounds of contented civilizations living in perfect balance with their beautiful world. He extinguishes the lamp, allowing moonlight to fill the room completely, and prepares to let sleep carry him away to those same peaceful realms that live within the pages of his treasured maps. You turn another weathered page of the atlas, and there before you lies a map unlike any other. Delicate green ink traces the boundaries of an ancient woodland, its edges softly faded with age. The cartographer's careful hand has marked towering trees with gentle strokes, and scattered throughout are curious symbols, large, rounded shapes that seem to move even on the static page. This is the forest of gentle giants, and as your fingers trace the parchment, you can almost hear the deep, resonant whispers of the wind through impossibly tall branches. Following the map's winding path, you find yourself standing at the forest's edge as dawn breaks through the morning mist. The trees here are older than memory itself, their trunks so wide that 20 people holding hands couldn't encircle them. Moss drapes their bark like soft green velvet, and shafts of golden sunlight filter down through the canopy in cathedral beams. The air smells of rich earth, pine needles, and something else, something ancient and peaceful that makes your shoulders relax with each breath. As you step onto the forest floor, your feet sink slightly into a carpet of moss, so thick it feels like walking on clouds. The silence here isn't empty. It's full of gentle sounds. Water trickles somewhere nearby, and leaves rustle high above with the softest whisper. Then you hear it, a sound like distant thunder, but rhythmic and slow. The ground beneath your feet trembles ever so slightly, not with violence, but with the patient footsteps of something immense. Through the morning light, you see your first gentle giant. It moves between the trees with surprising grace, its massive form covered in soft brown fur that seems to shimmer with flecks of moss and tiny wildflowers. The creature stands as tall as the ancient trees themselves, with kind, dark eyes that hold the wisdom of centuries. Its movements are deliberate and careful, each step placed with the consideration of one who knows that smaller beings share this space. The giant pauses near a fallen tree, its enormous hands reaching down with incredible gentleness to lift the trunk. You watch in wonder as it carefully positions the log to form a natural bridge across a small stream. Water bubbles merrily beneath, and already you can see tiny field mice beginning to use this new pathway, their whiskers twitching with gratitude. As you venture deeper into the forest, following the atlas's carefully marked trail, you discover this is no isolated act of kindness. Everywhere you look, the gentle giants tend their woodland home with the patience of master gardeners. One massive being carefully prunes dead branches from the canopy, letting more sunlight reach the forest floor where delicate ferns unfurl their fronds. Another uses its great hands to divert a stream, creating a small pond where deer can drink and dragonflies dance above the water's surface. You settle on a moss-covered boulder to watch this ancient dance of cooperation. Rabbits hop fearlessly around the giant's feet, and colorful birds nest in the folds of their fur. The giants move like living mountains, each gesture slow and purposeful, their breathing deep, and even like the rhythm of ocean waves. When one sits to rest against a massive oak, you notice how smaller creatures gather around: squirrels, foxes, even a family of raccoons, all finding comfort in the giant's peaceful presence. The afternoon light grows softer, painting everything in shades of amber and gold. A young giant approaches a grove where songbirds have built their nests too high in a dead tree. With infinite care, it reaches up and gently transplants each nest to a healthier branch, cupping each precious home in palms the size of dining tables. The birds flutter around its head, not in alarm, but in what looks remarkably like gratitude, their sweet songs filling the air. As evening approaches, the forest giants begin their twilight ritual. They move through the woodland in a slow procession, their hands glowing with a soft, warm light. Where they touch, night-blooming flowers open their petals, releasing fragrances of jasmine and honeysuckle into the cooling air. Fireflies begin to dance, their lights echoing the gentle glow from the giant's palms. You close the atlas softly, the map's edges shimmering as if the forest itself were breathing. The last light of day filters through the canopy, and all around you, the forest of gentle giants settles into peaceful rest. The giants themselves find comfortable spots among the great trees, some leaning against trunks they've tended for centuries, others sitting in meadows carpeted with soft grass. Their breathing slows, deep and rhythmic, and you feel your own breath matching theirs. The smaller forest creatures curl up in the warmth of their presence, and gradually, the entire woodland becomes a living lullaby. Here in this ancient place, where size means nothing and kindness means everything, all beings great and small find their rest together, watched over by gentle guardians whose love for their forest home extends to every creature that calls it sanctuary. The atlas rests quietly in your lap, its pages whispering of dreams yet to be explored. The parchment crackles softly as you unfold another section of the ancient atlas, revealing delicate ink lines that map out a district unlike any other. Here, nestled between the sweeping curves of two gentle rivers, lies the artisan's quarter, a place where time moves to the rhythm of hammer on anvil, wheel on clay, and chisel on wood. Your finger traces the narrow streets that wind like tributaries through this peaceful realm. Each thoroughfare bears a name that speaks of its purpose. Pottery Lane, where the sweet scent of wet earth mingles with wood smoke from the kilns. Carpenter's Row, where the warm fragrance of cedar and oak shavings drifts on every breeze. Metalworker's Way, where the measured ring of hammers creates a gentle percussion that echoes off stone walls worn smooth by centuries of careful hands. As you step into this mapped world, your footsteps fall silent on cobblestones polished by countless feet. The morning light filters through canvas awnings stretched between buildings, casting everything in a golden amber glow that seems to slow time itself. There is no hurry here, no urgency, only the steady, meditative rhythm of creation. In a workshop with wide-open doors, you glimpse a potter at her wheel. Her hands move with fluid grace, guiding clay that rises and falls like a living thing. Water drips steadily from her fingertips, each drop catching the light before disappearing into the spinning earth. Behind her, rows of vessels wait patiently on wooden shelves, bowls and cups and jars that will one day hold honey, wine, or perhaps just the morning light streaming through a kitchen window. The wheel turns and turns and turns, its gentle whisper joining the symphony of focused work that fills every corner of this quarter. You can almost feel the cool clay beneath your own palms, smooth and yielding, shaped by intention and patience into something both useful and beautiful. Moving deeper into the mapped district, you discover Carpenter's Row, where sawdust dances in shafts of sunlight like tiny golden spirits. Here, a woodworker bent over his bench guides a plane across a length of cherry wood, each stroke revealing the grain beneath. Rivers of burgundy and cream that speak of seasons of growth, of rain and sunshine absorbed into the very heart of the tree. The shavings curl away from his blade like small waves, gathering at his feet in fragrant heaps. The workshop smells of linseed oil and beeswax, of timber that has been seasoned and cared for, waiting for the moment when skilled hands would coax it into new life. Chairs take shape here, and tables, and chests that will hold treasures and memories for generations yet to come. Near the window, an apprentice sands a piece of maple, her movements slow and rhythmic, meditative as prayer. The wood grows smoother under her patient touch, grain emerging like a secret revealed one gentle stroke at a time. There is no hurry in her work, no impatience, only the deep satisfaction that comes from perfecting something with care. The map guides you onward to Metalworker's Way, where the sound of hammers rings like distant bells across the quarter. But even here, in workshops filled with forged fire and glowing steel, there is tranquility. A blacksmith works at his anvil, shaping iron with precise, measured strikes. Each blow is deliberate, purposeful, adding to the slow transformation of raw metal into something graceful and strong. Sparks rise like tiny stars with each hammer fall, winking out against the stone walls in small celebrations of light. The smith pauses to examine his work, turning the glowing metal with tongs, studying the curve he's creating with the focused attention of a scholar reading ancient texts. There is artistry in his strength, poetry in the way he shapes the stubborn iron into delicate scrollwork that will one day adorn a garden gate. In the corner, bellows breathe like sleeping giants, feeding the forge with steady rhythm. The coals glow deep red, then orange, then white-hot, painting everything in warm, flickering light. Even the heat here feels comforting rather than oppressive, like sitting beside a hearth on a winter evening. As twilight begins to settle over the artisan's quarter, the workshops grow quiet one by one. Tools are cleaned and set aside, work covered with soft cloths, fires banked for the night. The artisans emerge from their doorways, nodding to one another with the peaceful satisfaction of another day's honest work completed. The atlas rustles as you fold it closed, but the vision remains. This place where time moves to the rhythm of creation, where every day brings new beauty into being through patient hands and quiet hearts. In this mapped realm, craftsmanship is meditation, work is worship, and every tool becomes an instrument of peace. As you turn the aged pages of the Mapmaker's atlas, your fingers trace the delicate ink lines that reveal the spiral city of ascending gardens. The parchment feels warm beneath your touch, and you can almost smell the earthy sweetness of countless blooms that fill this remarkable place. The city rises before you like a gentle mountain, sculpted by loving hands, its architecture flowing in graceful curves that mirror the natural spiral of a seashell. Unlike the harsh angles and straight lines of ordinary cities, every pathway here follows the soft arc of an ascending ramp, carrying residents and visitors ever upward through layers of verdant beauty. You begin your climb at the city's base, where the first tier spreads wide like the roots of an ancient tree. Here, the gardens overflow with low-growing herbs and flowering ground cover. Chamomile and lavender carpet the walkways, releasing their calming fragrances with each gentle footstep. Stone benches carved from pale limestone invite rest beneath arbors heavy with jasmine vines, their white blossoms glowing softly in the diffused light that filters through the terraced levels above. The ramp curves gradually upward, its surface worn smooth by countless years of peaceful passage. As you ascend, the architecture reveals its brilliant design. Each spiral creates natural wind tunnels that carry cool breezes throughout the city, while the terraced gardens filter and purify the air, creating a climate that feels perpetually spring-like and fresh. On the second tier, fruit trees line the pathways. Apple blossoms drift like snow on the gentle breeze, while pear trees heavy with developing fruit provide dappled shade over outdoor markets where vendors sell their wares in hushed, reverent tones. The sound of water trickling through carved channels mingles with the soft murmur of conversation and the distant cooing of doves that nest in the flowering vines. Children play quietly in small pocket parks built into natural alcoves along the spiral path. Their laughter echoes gently off the curved walls, creating a sound like distant wind chimes. Gardens designed specifically for young hands feature raised beds at child height, filled with sunflowers and marigolds, while shallow pools allow little fingers to trail in water that reflects the terraced city, rising above like a green and flowering tower. As you continue your ascent to the third tier, the view behind you opens into a breathtaking panorama of the lower levels. The spiral design becomes clear from this height, concentric circles of gardens and dwellings, flowing outward and downward like ripples on a pond. Each level visible below appears as a different shade of green, from the deep emerald of mature oak trees at the base to the silvery gray-green of olive groves on the middle terraces. Here on the third tier, the gardens take on a more contemplative character. Meditation pavilions built from honey-colored wood sit surrounded by bamboo groves that whisper softly in the ever-present breeze. The pathways wind between reflecting pools where lotus flowers bloom in shades of pink and cream, their broad leaves creating natural stepping stones for the small frogs that sing gentle evening songs even in the daylight hours. Residents move through their city with an unhurried grace that matches the flowing architecture around them. They tend their gardens with careful attention, harvesting vegetables from vertical growing walls that maximize space while creating living art. The soft scrape of garden tools against earth mingles with the rustle of leaves and the gentle splash of water flowing through the ingenious irrigation system that carries mountain springs to every tier. As afternoon light slants through the terraced levels above, creating patterns of gold and green shadow on the pathways, you find yourself drawn to one of the many viewing platforms that jut out from the spiral like natural balconies. From here, you can see how the city's design creates countless intimate spaces, pocket gardens, tucked into curves of the spiral, small amphitheaters, where residents gather for quiet evening concerts, and terraced reading nooks where people sit with books, their voices joining the soft symphony of the city's natural acoustics. The spiral city breathes around you, its very architecture designed to promote peace and reflection. As evening approaches and the first stars begin to appear in the deepening sky above, lanterns flicker to life along the spiraling pathways, creating rivers of warm light that flow upward through the terraced gardens like earthbound constellations. Your journey through this remarkable place draws to a gentle close as you settle onto a comfortable bench carved directly into the living rock of the spiral's curve. The atlas rests heavy in your lap as you breathe in the evening air, rich with the perfume of night-blooming flowers and the promise of peaceful dreams beneath a canopy of ascending stars. In the soft morning light, your weathered hands unfold another section of the ancient atlas, revealing delicate brushstrokes that depict a vast wetland painted in gentle blues and greens. The marsh of floating homes spreads before you on the parchment like a watercolor dream, where tiny houses are sketched with careful detail, each one connected to the others by graceful bridges that seem to dance across the water's surface. As you trace the meandering waterways with your fingertip, the map begins to shimmer and transform. The flat illustration deepens, and suddenly you find yourself standing on a wooden platform, surrounded by the peaceful sounds of lapping water and the distant calls of marsh birds greeting the dawn. The air here carries the sweet scent of water lilies and the earthy richness of fertile wetlands. Before you stretches a remarkable community, where dozens of homes float serenely on the calm waters. Each house is a marvel of gentle engineering, constructed from warm, honey-colored wood that gleams softly in the morning sun. The structures rise and fall with the water's natural rhythm, never fighting against the marsh's seasonal changes, but moving in perfect harmony with nature's ancient dance. You step carefully onto a floating walkway that connects the homes, feeling the subtle sway beneath your feet. The wood is smooth and worn by countless footsteps, polished to a gentle sheen by years of loving use. As you move forward, the walkway adjusts to your weight with barely a whisper, designed to accommodate the marsh's ever-changing water levels. A woman emerges from one of the nearby homes, her movements fluid and graceful as she navigates the floating pathway with practiced ease. She tends to a small garden that grows in raised beds along the edge of her dwelling, where vegetables and herbs flourish in the rich, moist soil. The garden beds are cleverly designed to float alongside the house, rising and falling with the seasonal floods like patient companions. Children's laughter drifts across the water as a group of young ones paddle small boats between the houses, their craft moving through channels that wind naturally between the floating homes. Their boats are carved from the same warm wood as the houses, each one a miniature work of art that cuts through the water with barely a ripple. The children wave as they pass, their faces bright with the joy of a life lived in constant, gentle motion. You notice how the homes themselves are marvels of adaptive architecture. Each structure rests on a foundation of carefully sealed wooden pontoons, allowing them to rise and fall with the water levels that change with the seasons. During the dry months, the houses settle lower, their foundations touching the marsh bottom, creating temporary solid ground where residents can tend larger gardens and gather for community celebrations. An elderly man sits on his floating porch, weaving baskets from the long, flexible reeds that grow abundantly throughout the marsh. His fingers work with the patience of decades, creating containers that are both beautiful and perfectly suited to life on the water. The gentle rocking motion of his home seems to guide the rhythm of his work, each strand of reed finding its place in the emerging pattern. As the sun climbs higher, more residents begin their daily routines. You watch as someone hangs laundry on lines that stretch between floating posts, the fabric swaying gently in the warm breeze. Nearby, a group of adults work together to repair a section of communal walkway, their cooperation flowing as naturally as the water beneath their feet. The marsh itself teems with peaceful life. Herons stand motionless in the shallows, their reflections creating perfect mirror images in the still water. Dragonflies dart between the floating homes, their iridescent wings catching the sunlight like tiny jewels. Water lilies bloom in quiet clusters, their white and pink petals opening to welcome the day. You pause at a small floating pavilion that serves as the community's heart, where residents gather to share meals and stories. Long tables made from driftwood and marsh reeds accommodate the gentle movement of the water, never spilling a drop of tea or disturbing a single plate. The conversations here flow like the water itself, unhurried and peaceful, punctuated by comfortable silences and the soft sounds of the marsh. As afternoon settles over the floating community, you understand that this is more than just adaptation to the environment. It's a celebration of life's fluid nature. The residents have learned to find peace in constant, gentle change, building their lives around the rhythm of rising and falling water, embracing both the solid certainty of dry season and the graceful movement of the floods. The sun begins to sink toward the horizon, painting the marsh in shades of gold and amber. The floating homes rock gently like cradles, their warm lights beginning to twinkle in windows as the day draws to its peaceful close. Your eyes grow heavy as you watch this serene world, where life moves with the same gentle rhythm as the water that cradles it all. In the farthest reaches of our atlas, where cartographers' ink grows faint and the paper bears the gentle yellowing of age, we discover perhaps the most restorative of all forgotten realms. The Valley of Healing Springs unfolds before us like a secret whispered by the earth itself, a place where time moves with the unhurried patience of rising steam. Here, tucked between rolling hills carpeted in sage and wildflower, the ground breathes warmth. Natural hot springs bubble up from deep beneath the earth's surface, each one a gift of mineral-rich water that has traveled through layers of ancient stone, gathering healing properties like pearls on a string. The geological surveys tell us of dozens of these thermal pools, each unique in its composition, each offering its own gentle remedy to weary travelers. As you walk the well-worn paths that connect spring to spring, smooth river stones massage your feet through thin-soled shoes. The air carries the faint scent of sulfur, not unpleasant but earthy and natural, mixed with the sweet fragrance of mountain herbs that grow wild along the valley floor. Wisps of steam rise from each pool like incense, creating a soft haze that blurs the edges of the world and makes everything seem dreamlike. The communities that have grown around these healing waters are small and unhurried. Wooden walkways connect cluster of low buildings constructed from local stone and timber, their roofs covered in living moss that changes color with the seasons. Gardens flourish in the warm, humid air near the springs, heavy with medicinal herbs whose leaves glisten with moisture. Lavender and chamomile grow in careful rows, their purple and white blooms nodding gently in the thermal updrafts. The people here have structured their days around the rhythm of the springs. Morning brings the first communal bathing, when families and neighbors gather at the largest of the thermal pools. The water is a perfect temperature, somewhere between the warmth of a summer afternoon and the comfort of a heated hearth. Children laugh softly as they splash, their voices echoing gently off the smooth stone walls that have been polished by centuries of mineral deposits. You watch as an elderly woman lowers herself slowly into the copper-tinted waters of the joint healing spring, her weathered hands gripping the smooth stone edge. Her grandson helps steady her, his young face serious with concentration and care. The water embraces her like an old friend, and you can see tension leaving her shoulders as the minerals work their ancient magic on her tired bones. At another pool, tinted pale green by its unique mineral content, a group of travelers sits in comfortable silence. These are people who have journeyed far to reach this valley, drawn by stories passed down through generations about waters that heal not just the body but the spirit. Some have traveled for months, carrying letters of introduction from distant healers who know of this place. Others simply heard whispers in market squares or read faded entries in old journals left by previous visitors. The spring keepers move among the pools with quiet authority, testing temperatures with weathered wooden instruments, adding dried herbs to certain springs according to recipes that have been refined over centuries. Their knowledge is deep and intuitive, passed down through apprenticeships that last for decades. They know which spring is best for aching joints, which for troubled sleep, which for the nameless weariness that settles on the soul after long journeys. As afternoon settles over the valley, you find yourself at the contemplation pool, a smaller spring set apart from the others and surrounded by a garden of white flowers that bloom only in the evening. The water here is clearer than glass, so pure that you can count the smooth pebbles on the bottom, despite its considerable depth. This spring is said to heal invisible wounds, the kind that don't show on the skin but weigh heavy on the heart. The evening meal is served in a communal hall built over one of the gentler springs, so that diners can soak their feet in the warm water while they eat. The food is simple but nourishing, grown in the valley's rich soil and seasoned with herbs that carry their own healing properties. Conversations flow as easily as the water beneath your feet, voices soft and unhurried in the humid air. As darkness settles over the valley of healing springs, lanterns with colored glass cast gentle light across the water. The springs continue their endless circulation, drawing ancient minerals from the earth's heart and offering them freely to all who come seeking restoration. In this forgotten realm, healing happens as naturally as breathing, and time moves with the gentle patience of water finding its way back to the sea. The Mapmaker's atlas closes softly on this peaceful valley, but its waters continue to flow, an endless invitation to rest, to heal, and to remember that the earth itself knows how to mend what has been broken. The ancient path winds steadily upward through layers of sandstone, carved smooth by countless generations of feet seeking the stars above. Your fingers trace the worn handholds in the rock face as you climb toward the Star Watcher's mesa, where the air grows thin and crystalline clear. Each step brings you closer to a realm where earth meets sky, where patient observers have mapped the dance of celestial bodies for over 1,000 years. At the plateau's edge, the first thing that strikes you is the silence, not empty, but full of possibility, like the moment before dawn when the world holds its breath. The mesa stretches before you like a natural observatory, its flat expanse dotted with carefully arranged stone circles, each one precisely oriented to capture different portions of the night sky. Smooth obsidian mirrors, polished to perfection, lie embedded in the rock at calculated intervals, ready to reflect the light of stars and planets back to waiting eyes. The Star Watchers emerge from their stone dwellings as twilight deepens, moving with the unhurried grace of those who measure time not in hours but in seasons, not in days but in the great wheel of years. They wear robes of deep indigo, embroidered with silver threads that catch what little light remains, creating the illusion of wearing the night sky itself. Their faces are serene, marked by the patience that comes from a lifetime of watching and waiting, of understanding that the greatest truths reveal themselves slowly. An elderly woman approaches, her hair silver as moonbeams, carrying a collection of star charts rolled carefully in leather bindings. She speaks in whispers, as if loud voices might disturb the cosmic harmony, explaining how her people have tracked the movements of wandering stars, what others call planets, across the dome of heaven. Her fingers trace invisible patterns in the air, showing you how Venus dances with the sun, how Mars follows its crimson path through the constellation of the Hunter, how the great ringed wanderer moves so slowly that its journey marks the passing of generations. As full darkness settles over the mesa, the star charts come alive. What seemed like random dots and lines on parchment now correspond to brilliant points of light blazing overhead. The Star Watchers gather in their circles, some lying on their backs on soft woven mats, others seated at the obsidian mirrors, all gazing upward with expressions of quiet wonder. They point out the great river of light that flows across the sky, sharing stories passed down through centuries about the celestial hunters and their eternal chase across the heavens. A young man demonstrates how they use a complex arrangement of crystal lenses to study the moon's scarred face, showing you craters and mountains invisible to the naked eye. His voice carries the excitement of recent discovery as he describes how the moon's phases govern their planting cycles, how they read weather patterns in the subtle changes of atmospheric clarity that make stars twinkle or shine steady. Their agriculture depends not just on sun and rain, but on this deeper understanding of celestial rhythms that modern farmers have forgotten. The night grows deeper, and you find yourself lying beside the star watchers, your neck cushioned by a pillow filled with lavender and mountain herbs. Above you, the Milky Way spreads like scattered flour across black silk, so brilliant here on this elevated plateau that you can see its spiral structure with the naked eye. A meteor streaks across the constellation of the Swan, leaving a brief silver trail that fades like a whisper. The star watchers murmur appreciatively. They consider such celestial visitors to be messages, though they never claim to know what those messages contain. An ancient man begins to chant in a voice barely louder than the wind, reciting the names of stars in a language that predates all written records. Each name carries its own melody, its own cadence, as if the very sounds were designed to match the rhythm of the cosmos. Other voices join in, creating a harmony that seems to resonate with the turning of the spheres, with the slow dance of galaxies wheeling through space. As the night reaches its deepest point, you understand why these people chose this life of patient observation. In a world of constant motion and urgent demands, they have found peace in the eternal, comfort in the unchanging patterns that have guided navigators and dreamers since the first human looked up at the star-scattered sky and wondered about their place in the vast cosmic story. The pre-dawn hours bring a gentle stirring as the star watchers prepare to witness their favorite moment, the gradual fading of the stars as Earth turns toward another day. They watch with the same reverence they showed the evening's first starlight, understanding that endings and beginnings are part of the same eternal cycle, as predictable and comforting as the turning of the seasons, as dependable as the rising sun that now begins to paint the eastern horizon with the softest possible shade of gold. The morning mist rises gently from the delta waters as you unfold the water route maps before you. These ancient charts reveal a network of waterways so intricate, so beautifully complex, that they resemble the delicate veins of a leaf. Here, in this peaceful realm, the very concept of solid ground has given way to something far more graceful, an entire civilization that flows with the rhythm of the tides. Your small wooden boat glides silently through the main channel, its hull cutting through water so clear you can see schools of silver fish darting beneath the surface. The oars dip and rise with barely a sound, creating gentle ripples that spread outward in perfect circles before disappearing into the vastness of the delta. As you round a bend lined with drooping willow branches, the first floating market comes into view. It appears like a dream materialized on water. Dozens of boats of every size and color, tethered together in loose clusters that bob and sway with the current. Silk awnings in deep blues and warm golds stretch between the vessels, creating pools of shade where merchants display their wares. The air fills with the most wonderful aromas. Cinnamon and cardamom drift from a spice boat painted in cheerful yellow, while the sweet scent of fresh bread emanates from a baker's vessel nearby. A fruit seller's boat overflows with mangoes and melons, their colors so vibrant they seem to glow in the soft morning light. The merchant, an elderly woman with kind eyes, arranges her produce with the care of an artist, each piece placed just so. You guide your boat closer, marveling at the gentle choreography of commerce. There are no raised voices, no hurried transactions. Instead, negotiations unfold like a dance. Two traders meet between their boats, sharing tea as they examine bolts of silk that shimmer like captured moonlight. Their conversation flows as smoothly as the water beneath them, punctuated by warm laughter and respectful nods. A young merchant paddling a canoe filled with hand-woven baskets glides past, offering you a friendly wave. His craft is so laden with his beautiful work that it sits low in the water. Yet he navigates with the skill of someone born to these channels. The baskets, you notice, are works of art, each one woven in patterns that tell stories of the Delta, featuring stylized fish, flowing water, and flowering reeds. Moving deeper into the market, you discover boats specializing in the most extraordinary goods. Here floats a vessel devoted entirely to wind chimes, hundreds of them hanging from an intricate wooden framework. They create the most ethereal music as the gentle breeze moves through them. Silver notes that dance across the water and seem to harmonize with the soft lapping of waves against hulls. Another boat serves as a floating library, its careful owner having waterproofed countless volumes that rest in specially crafted compartments. Scholars and curious travelers drift alongside, borrowing books about navigation, poetry, and the natural history of the Delta. The librarian, a serene man with ink-stained fingers, stamps each loan with a seal made from pressed river reeds. The afternoon light begins to shift, casting everything in warm honey tones. You drift past a floating garden where an entire family tends to vegetables growing in clever suspended planters. Their boat home is a marvel of efficiency and beauty, with living walls of climbing beans and tomatoes, and small fruit trees whose roots extend into specially designed water chambers. As evening approaches, the market begins its graceful transformation. Some traders start their journey to the next trading cluster, their boats loaded with newly acquired goods and their heart's content with successful exchanges. Lanterns begin to appear, first one, then dozens, then hundreds, until the entire Delta sparkles like a constellation fallen to earth. A musician on a boat decorated with painted flowers begins to play a wooden flute, its melody carrying across the water like a gentle blessing. Other instruments join in from various boats, a soft drum here, strings plucked there, creating an impromptu symphony that seems to celebrate the day's peaceful commerce. You find yourself anchoring beside a tea-boat as the stars emerge overhead. The proprietor, moving with the fluid grace of someone who has spent a lifetime on water, serves you a cup of jasmine tea that steams in the cool evening air. The liquid tastes like flowers and tranquility, warming you from within as you listen to the soft conversations floating across the water in languages both familiar and foreign. As night settles fully over the Delta, you realize you have witnessed something profound. An entire economy built not on competition or haste, but on respect, patience, and the understanding that the best exchanges happen when hearts are as open as the endless waterways that connect one gentle soul to another. The floating markets drift peacefully into dreams of tomorrow's trades, carried by currents that have flowed this way for countless generations, ensuring that this beautiful dance of commerce will continue as long as rivers run to the sea. The parchment before you depicts the Academy of Natural Philosophy, where learning flows as gently as the stream that winds through its grounds. Ancient oaks form the pillars of outdoor classrooms, their broad canopies filtering sunlight into pools of golden warmth. The map reveals pathways worn smooth by countless footsteps, connecting groves where students gather in quiet circles, their voices blending with the whisper of leaves overhead. You follow a winding path marked in delicate ink strokes, beginning at the Academy's entrance, where ivy-covered stone arches welcome scholars from distant lands. The morning air carries the scent of pine needles and fresh earth, while somewhere nearby, a fountain bubbles softly, its waters feeding the herb gardens that line the walkway. Students move unhurriedly between the groves, their hemp-woven robes rustling softly as they carry leather-bound journals and wooden writing tablets. In the first clearing, you discover the circle of observation, where a professor with silver-streaked hair points toward the canopy above. His voice carries clearly in the still air as he describes the intricate patterns of bark, the way morning dew collects on spider webs, the subtle differences between oak and beech leaves. 20 students sit cross-legged on woven mats, their quills scratching gently against parchment as they sketch what they observe. A red squirrel pauses on a nearby branch, seemingly part of the lesson, before continuing its graceful journey through the trees. The map guides you deeper into the academy grounds, where a natural amphitheater carved into a gentle hillside hosts the daily philosophy gathering. Students and teachers sit together on wooden benches worn smooth by years of use, their faces peaceful in the dappled shade. An elderly woman with kind eyes speaks about the interconnectedness of all living things, her words measured and thoughtful. Her students listen with quiet attention, some taking notes, others simply absorbing the wisdom that flows as naturally as the brook nearby. You pass the greenhouse of curiosities, its glass panels reflecting the surrounding forest like mirrors. Inside, scholars tend to plants from distant realms, their movements careful and reverent. The warm, humid air carries the fragrance of exotic blooms and healing herbs. A young botanist waters seedlings with practiced precision, whispering encouragement to each plant as if they were old friends. Charts and diagrams cover the walls, mapping the relationships between roots and soil, sunlight and growth. Near the academy's heart lies the library grove, where books rest in wooden alcoves carved into living trees. The oaks have grown around these repositories of knowledge, protecting scrolls and manuscripts with their embrace. Students read quietly in hammocks strung between branches, their books resting on their chests as they pause to watch clouds drift overhead. The only sounds are the gentle turning of pages and the soft conversations of scholars sharing discoveries. You discover the meditation garden, marked on the map with symbols representing inner peace and contemplation. Smooth stones form sitting circles beneath weeping willows, their trailing branches creating natural curtains of privacy. A monk in simple robes sits motionless beside a small pond, his reflection wavering gently in the water. Lotus flowers float serenely on the surface, their petals opening slowly to the afternoon sun. The dormitories appear as simple wooden structures built around existing trees, their walls curving to accommodate ancient trunks. Windows remain open to catch evening breezes, and small gardens flourish outside each dwelling. Students tend these plots with gentle care, growing vegetables and flowers that provide both sustenance and beauty. Cooking fires release thin streams of aromatic smoke, carrying the sense of simple, nourishing meals shared in friendship. As twilight approaches, the map reveals the evening circle, where the entire academy gathers beneath the great oak, a massive tree whose trunk requires 20 people holding hands to encircle. Lanterns hang from its lower branches, casting warm light on upturned faces. Stories are shared here, not of conquest or conflict, but of natural wonders observed, problems solved through patient thought, and wisdom gained through quiet contemplation. The academy's bell tower, built of local stone and crowned with climbing roses, chimes the hours with gentle, bronze tones that echo through the forest. Night blooming, jasmine releases its sweet perfume. As darkness settles over the grounds, students retire to their simple quarters, where they review the day's lessons by candlelight before surrendering to peaceful dreams filled with the day's discoveries. The map's final detail shows the academy's motto, inscribed in flowing script beneath an illustration of an owl perched on an open book. Sapientia perpacem, wisdom through peace. Here, in this sanctuary of learning, knowledge grows like the ancient trees themselves, slowly, steadily, and in perfect harmony with the natural world that nurtures and sustains all life. The morning air carries whispers of distant places, as we open the atlas to reveal a map unlike any other. Here, the cartographer has traced not roads or rivers, but the invisible highways of the wind itself. Delicate arrows dance across parchment, marking the seasonal paths of air currents that sweep across endless grasslands. These are the routes of the gentle wind nomads, a people who have learned to read the sky as easily as others read written words. We find ourselves standing at the edge of a vast prairie, where the grass stretches to every horizon like a green ocean, frozen in gentle motion. The wind moves through these grasses in waves, creating patterns that shift and flow like water. In the distance, we can see them approaching a caravan of people and animals, moving with the unhurried grace of clouds across the sky. The nomads travel light, their possessions designed for constant movement. Yurts made of felt and flexible poles can be assembled or taken down in mere hours. Their colors blend harmoniously with the landscape's soft browns and weathered grays, touched with the deep blue of endless skies. As they draw closer, we notice how quietly they move. Their animals' hooves are wrapped in soft leather, and their carts roll on wheels designed to whisper rather than rumble across the earth. Their leader, an elderly woman with silver hair braided with small bells that chime softly in the breeze, approaches us with a warm smile. Her eyes hold the depth of someone who has seen countless sunrises from countless places. She gestures to the sky, where thin clouds stretch like fingers pointing the way forward. The morning winds speak of rain in 3 days, she says, her voice carrying the melody of someone accustomed to speaking over gentle breezes. We must reach the singing hills before then. As we join their procession, we learn to see the world through their eyes. Every cloud formation tells a story of weather to come. The way grass bends reveals the strength and direction of tomorrow's winds. Even the behavior of birds provides crucial information about atmospheric changes miles away. Children learn these lessons naturally, growing up under an open sky classroom where the curriculum changes with each passing season. Their camps appear like flowers blooming from the prairie itself. The yurts rise in organic clusters, their placement determined not by rigid planning, but by the natural flow of wind and water. Cooking fires are built in shallow depressions that disperse smoke gradually, never creating the harsh plumes that would disturb the delicate balance of the grassland ecosystem. Everything they do honors the principle of leaving no trace, moving through the landscape like wind itself, present and vital, but causing no lasting disturbance. Evening brings the daily ritual of weather reading. The entire community gathers as the wind readers study the sunset sky. Tonight, high cirrus clouds catch the fading light, their wispy formations speaking of changes in the upper atmosphere. The wind carries new scents, the green smell of distant forests, a hint of moisture from far-off lakes. Tomorrow's journey will curve slightly northward, following a pressure system that promises favorable conditions. As night settles over the camp, the nomads share stories that move like the wind itself, fluid, interconnected tales that flow from one teller to another. Their oral tradition contains not just entertainment, but practical knowledge accumulated over generations. Which valleys provide shelter during unexpected storms, where the sweetest water can be found during the dry season, how to recognize the subtle signs that predict the great wind shifts that mark the changing of seasons. Children fall asleep to lullabies that mimic the sound of wind through grass, their voices rising and falling like gentle gusts. The older members of the tribe check the animals one final time, ensuring they are comfortable and secure for the night. Their horses and sheep seem as attuned to the wind patterns as their human companions, often sensing weather changes hours before the most experienced weather readers. The night sky above holds no light pollution, only the ancient patterns of stars that serve as compass and calendar. The nomads read these celestial maps with the same fluency they bring to understanding wind patterns. Constellations mark not just direction, but the timing of seasonal migrations, the best periods for trading with settled peoples, and the sacred times when the wind spirits are said to dance most freely across the grasslands. As we drift towards sleep in our borrowed yurt, the constant gentle sound of wind through grass creates nature's own lullaby. The nomads have learned something profound about living in harmony with forces beyond human control. They bend without breaking, adapt without losing their essential nature, and find home not in any single place, but in the endless journey itself. Tomorrow will bring new horizons, new wind patterns to read, new lessons from the ever-changing sky. The atlas page turns gently in the night breeze, ready to reveal the next chapter of their eternal migration across the peaceful grasslands of the world. You turn the page of the ancient atlas, and your fingertips trace the delicate lines of what appears to be a cross-section map, as if someone had sliced through the very earth itself to reveal its hidden secrets. The paper feels different here, slightly thicker, with a faint luminescence that seems to pulse gently beneath your touch. This is chapter 22, the underground gardens, and as your eyes adjust to the subtle glow emanating from the page, you begin to see something extraordinary. The map shows layers upon layers of earth, each stratum carefully detailed in sepia ink, but it's what lies beneath that captures your imagination. Vast caverns stretch out like cathedral spaces, their domed ceilings supported by natural pillars of limestone that have grown over countless centuries. And within these spaces, something magical has taken root. Gardens, endless gardens that flow like rivers of green through the underground world. You lean closer, and the map seems to respond to your curiosity. The details grow clearer, more vivid, as if you're descending through the layers of earth yourself. You can almost smell the rich, loamy soil that fills terraced beds carved into the cavern floors. These aren't the wild, chaotic gardens of the surface world, but carefully tended plots where every plant has been chosen with deliberate care. The inhabitants of this subterranean realm have learned to coax light from the darkness itself. Suspended from the cavern ceilings, you see orbs of soft, golden radiance, artificial suns that cast the same gentle warmth as a spring morning. They pulse with a rhythm that mimics the natural cycle of day and night, though down here, time moves to its own quiet drumbeat. Beneath these glowing orbs, crops flourish in neat rows, wheat that grows taller and more golden than anything seen on the surface, vegetables that seem to glow with their own inner vitality, tomatoes like ruby jewels, carrots the color of sunset, leafy greens that shimmer with morning dew that never quite evaporates in this perpetual spring. You notice pathways winding between the growing beds, made of smooth stones worn gentle by countless footsteps. The people who tend these gardens move with unhurried grace, their movements as natural and flowing as the growth of the plants themselves. They wear simple clothes in earth tones, browns and greens, and the color of mushrooms, and their faces carry the peaceful expressions of those who have found their true calling. Water flows through this underground world in carefully channeled streams that follow the natural contours of the caverns. The sound is constant but never intrusive, a gentle murmur that speaks of springs fed by underground rivers, of water that has traveled through miles of rock to emerge pure and mineral-rich. The waterways wind between the garden beds, providing irrigation through a system so elegant it seems to have grown naturally from the earth itself. In one corner of the map, you see a gathering space where the gardeners come together. Stone benches arranged in circles, carved from the living rock of the cavern walls. Here, knowledge is shared in quiet conversations. Which seeds thrive best under the amber light? How to read the subtle signs that tell when fruit is perfectly ripe? The ancient techniques for soil preparation that have been passed down through generations of underground dwellers. The children here learn by watching and doing, their small hands gentle with seedlings, their voices adding soft melodies to the underground symphony. They know the name of every plant, understand the careful balance that keeps this hidden ecosystem thriving. They move through the garden paths like young deer, quiet and sure-footed, carrying water in small vessels or tending to the delicate work of transplanting. As your eyes continue to explore the map, you notice that these gardens connect to other chambers, vast root cellars where the harvest is stored, workshops where tools are crafted from stone and metal drawn from the earth, living spaces carved into alcoves where families gather around hearths that burn with the same gentle light as the artificial suns. The air in this underground world would be clean and sweet, carrying the sense of growing things and rich earth, of herbs drying in bundles and bread baking in stone ovens. It would be air that moves slowly, circulating through natural passages that serve as the lungs of this hidden realm. There are no seasons here in the traditional sense, no harsh winters or scorching summers. Instead, there is the eternal rhythm of planting and growing and harvesting, the gentle cycle that provides abundance without the uncertainty of surface weather. It is a world of perpetual spring, where the soil never freezes and the growing never truly stops. As you slowly lift your gaze from the map, the image lingers in your mind. This peaceful underground kingdom where human hands work in harmony with the earth's deepest mysteries, where light and water and soil combine to create something approaching paradise, hidden away in the gentle darkness beneath our feet. Your fingers trace the delicate lines of another extraordinary map, this one drawn with the precision of an architect's blueprint, yet infused with the wonder of a dreamer's vision. Before you spreads the bridge builder's kingdom, a realm where human ingenuity has learned to dance with the natural world in the most graceful way imaginable. The mountains rise like ancient guardians across the parchment, their peaks touching wisps of cloud that the cartographer has rendered in soft, silvery strokes. But what captures your attention immediately is the network of bridges that connects every peak, every valley, every impossible height. These are not crude wooden planks thrown hastily across gaps, but elegant stone arches that seem to grow from the mountain faces themselves, as if the earth had learned to reach across empty space with arms of limestone and granite. You can almost feel the cool mountain air as you imagine stepping onto the first bridge, your footsteps echoing softly against stones worn smooth by countless travelers. The bridge beneath your feet curves gracefully, following the natural contours of the landscape rather than fighting against them. Its surface is wide enough for carts to pass, yet narrow enough to feel intimate, personal, as if each crossing is a quiet conversation between you and the mountains. Below, a valley stretches away into misty depths, where a silver stream winds between stands of pine trees. The bridge builders have chosen their paths wisely, following the mountain's own wisdom about where stone should meet stone, where weight should rest, where wind should flow. Each structure seems to breathe with the landscape, rising and falling in gentle rhythms that complement rather than dominate the terrain. The engineering drawings in the map's margins reveal the builder's secret's careful calculations of stress and load, detailed studies of wind patterns, precise measurements of stone grain and weather resistance. Yet these technical notes are illuminated with tiny sketches of mountain flowers, suggesting builders who see beauty and function as inseparable companions. They understand that a bridge must not only carry weight, but also carry wonder. As you follow the mapped route deeper into the kingdom, the bridges grow more elaborate. Some span distances that seem impossible, their arches so perfectly proportioned that they appear weightless, floating like stone rainbows between the peaks. Others descend in gentle spirals around mountainsides, allowing travelers to move from high meadows to valley floors in a leisurely journey that unfolds new vistas at every turn. The villages of the bridge builders nestle into mountainsides and perch on broader spans, their homes built from the same stone as the walkways that connect them. Smoke rises peacefully from chimneys, suggesting hearths where bridge builders warm themselves after long days of careful construction. Their workshops must be filled with models and drawings, with tools designed for precision work in precarious places, with the quiet satisfaction of creators who build things meant to last for centuries. You can imagine the rhythm of their work, the careful selection of each stone, the patient testing of each joint, the gradual emergence of another graceful span across another impossible gap. There is no hurry here, no rushed construction that scars the landscape. Instead, there is the methodical patience of craftspeople who understand that the mountains have waited millions of years for these bridges, and can wait a little longer for them to be built correctly. The map shows rest stations along the longer spans, small shelters where travelers can pause to appreciate the views that unfold around them. From these vantage points, the entire kingdom spreads below and above a three-dimensional tapestry of stone and sky, where communities exist not just in valleys or on peaks, but suspended between earth and heaven on pathways that seem to float through the air. Evening light bathes the kingdom in gentle gold as your imagined journey continues. The bridges cast long shadows across the valleys, creating patterns of light and darkness that shift and dance as the sun moves across the sky. Lanterns begin to twinkle along the walkways, warm points of light that guide night travelers safely across spans that might otherwise seem daunting in darkness. The bridge builder's kingdom represents something profound about human possibility, the idea that obstacles can become opportunities, that challenging terrain can inspire rather than defeat us. Here is a civilization that chose to work with difficulty rather than around it, to see isolation as an invitation to connection, to transform the impossible into the inevitable through careful thought and patient craft. As you close this section of the atlas, you carry with you the image of those elegant stone arches, still spanning their valleys in your imagination, still offering passage between peaks that once stood separate and alone. In dreams tonight, perhaps you will walk those bridges yourself, feeling the solid stone beneath your feet and the open sky all around. The monastery bells have fallen silent, leaving only the gentle whisper of wind through the ancient stone corridors and the soft crackling of embers in Aldrich's hearth. He sets down his quill with deliberate care, the metal nib catching the amber glow of firelight as it comes to rest beside the intricate map of the crystal gardens. His weathered hands, marked by decades of careful cartography, smooth across the parchment one final time before he leans back in his chair. The fire has burned low, its flames now dancing in lazy spirals that cast shifting shadows across the vaulted ceiling above. Aldrich rises slowly, his joints creaking like old leather, and moves to tend the dying blaze. He selects 3 pieces of seasoned oak from the neat stack beside the hearth, placing each log with the same methodical precision he brings to his map making. The wood catches quickly, sending up a shower of golden sparks that drift and fade like tiny stars returning to darkness. As warmth begins to radiate once more through the chamber, Aldrich's gaze drifts across the collection of charts spread before him on the great wooden table. Each map tells its own story of discovery, of civilizations that have learned to live in harmony with the natural world around them. The floating gardens of Serenitas, where people cultivate their crops on beds of woven reeds that rise and fall with the gentle tides. The Wind Whisper valleys, where entire communities have built their homes into the living rock of cliffsides, creating dwellings that breathe with the mountain itself. He traces a finger along the borders of the Sunward Plains, where nomadic herders follow ancient migration routes, their felt tents appearing and disappearing like flowers that bloom with the seasons. There, he had learned, conflicts are resolved not through battle, but through the sharing of songs, each tribe contributing verses to epic poems that grow richer with each telling. The wisdom of generations flows like water from voice to voice, carrying with it the accumulated knowledge of how to live gently upon the earth. The monastery's great bell tower chimes the hour, its deep bronze voice rolling across the valley 12 times before fading into the night. Midnight, Aldrich pauses in his reflections, listening to the last echoes as they bounce between the distant peaks. Somewhere in the darkness beyond his window, night blooming, jasmine releases its perfume into the cool air, and he breathes deeply, letting the fragrance settle in his lungs like a blessing. Returning to his chair, he pulls his woolen cloak more closely around his shoulders and contemplates the remaining territories yet to be explored in his atlas. The moonlit archipelago waits, its chain of silver islands connected by bridges of cultivated coral that glow softly beneath the stars. The inhabitants there, he has read, are master astronomers who navigate not only by the positions of celestial bodies, but by the subtle songs of whales that migrate through their waters, carrying messages between the scattered communities. And beyond that, the Mistuad sanctuaries beckon, where ancient groves have been carefully tended for 1,000 years by families of gentle guardians. Each tree is known by name, each clearing maintained as a place of meditation and quiet learning. The people there have developed a written language based on the patterns of leaf fall and the intricate designs of spider webs jeweled with morning dew. Aldrich's eyes grow heavy as he considers these wonders still to come. The fire settles into a steady, comforting rhythm, its warmth spreading through the stone walls that have sheltered countless scholars and seekers over the centuries. The very stones seem to pulse gently with accumulated wisdom, as if the building itself has learned to breathe in harmony with its inhabitants. He reaches for his leather journal, its pages filled with careful notes and sketches made during his cartographic journeys. Opening it to a blank page, he writes in his precise script, "Each realm teaches us that peace is not the absence of challenge, but the presence of understanding, where wisdom flows freely between generations, where the earth is treated as teacher rather than resource. There flourishes a contentment that needs no conquest to sustain itself." The words seem to glow momentarily in the firelight before settling into the cream-colored paper. Aldrich closes the journal and places it carefully beside the unfinished map of the Crystal Gardens. Tomorrow's work will continue the patient documentation of these forgotten realms, each one a testament to humanity's capacity for harmony and grace. For now, though, the night spreads its gentle blanket across the monastery, and the Mapmaker's atlas rests peacefully beneath the watchful stars, its secrets ready to unfold with the coming dawn. You settle deeper into your chair as we turn to page 247 of the ancient atlas, where delicate blue-green inks map the depths of the cerulean reaches. The parchment here feels different beneath your fingers, slightly damp, as if it still holds memories of the ocean's embrace. Golden compass, roses mark depths measured not in fathoms, but in the slow growth of living stone. The Mapmaker's careful annotations describe a discovery that defied all earthly understanding. Miles beneath the surface of a forgotten sea, where sunlight had never touched the seafloor, an entire civilization thrived in gardens of their own making. These were the coral architects, beings who had learned the ancient art of growing their cities rather than building them. As you trace the mapped pathways with your eyes, you can almost feel the gentle current carrying you downward, past schools of luminescent fish that drift like living stars. The water grows warmer as you descend, heated by thermal vents that the architects had long ago learned to harness. Streams of mineral-rich water flow through carefully cultivated channels, feeding the great coral gardens that form the foundation of their world. The first structures appear gradually, emerging from what seemed like natural reef formations. Spiraling towers of pink and orange coral stretch upward, their surfaces alive with tiny polyps that pulse with soft bioluminescence. The architects move between these living buildings with fluid grace, their elongated forms perfectly adapted to their aquatic realm. Their skin shimmers with patches of coral growth, a symbiotic relationship that allows them to communicate directly with their living city. Each building grows according to ancient patterns, passed down through countless generations. The architects plant seed polyps in carefully chosen locations, then guide their growth with gentle touches and whispered songs that resonate through the water. Over decades, simple foundations become elaborate chambers, their walls filtering seawater and providing homes for countless marine creatures. You watch through the mapmaker's detailed illustrations as an architect tends to a growing spire, her webbed fingers trailing along the coral's surface. Where she touches, new branches unfurl in predetermined patterns. The building breathes around her, its walls expanding and contracting with the rhythm of the tide. Schools of bright fish swim through natural windows, their movement serving as a living ventilation system. The great library stands at the heart of the city, its dome formed from a single massive brain coral that has grown for over 1,000 years. Inside, knowledge is stored not in books, but in the coral's living memory. Scholars press their palms against specific sections of the wall, feeling the subtle vibrations that encode stories, maps, and wisdom accumulated over millennia. Gardens of soft corals sway between the buildings like underwater meadows. Here, young architects learn the delicate art of cultivation, their small hands guiding the growth of anemones and sea fans. Elder teachers move among them, their movements creating gentle currents that carry nutrients to growing formations. The gardens serve as both classroom and nursery, where the next generation of living architecture begins its slow journey toward maturity. The mapmaker's notes describe the Great Reef Council, where decisions are made not through spoken words, but through the harmonic resonance of the coral itself. When the architects gather, they place their hands upon specific formations that have been growing for centuries. The living coral amplifies and harmonizes their thoughts, creating a collective consciousness that guides the development of their civilization. At the city's edge, construction sites stretch across the seafloor like vast gardens in bloom. Young corals grow in careful rows, guided by master architects who shape their development with infinite patience. These will become the homes, workshops, and gathering places of future generations, a city that grows as slowly and surely as the tides themselves. The thermal vents that provide warmth also serve as the foundation for the greatest architectural achievements. Here, the most ancient corals have grown into cathedral-like spaces, their chambers large enough to hold hundreds of architects. The walls glow with natural phosphorescence, creating patterns that shift and dance with the movement of the water. As the mapped pathways lead you through this underwater metropolis, you notice how perfectly integrated everything is. There are no sharp edges, no imposed structures fighting against the natural world. Instead, every surface curves and flows, created through cooperation between builder and built. The city lives and breathes as one organism, its inhabitants as much a part of its structure as the coral itself. The final annotations speak of festivals where the entire city participates in synchronized growth spurts, new formations blooming simultaneously across the reef. During these times, the water itself seems to sing with harmonies that carry for miles through the deep ocean currents. Your eyes grow heavy as you imagine floating in those gentle waters, surrounded by the slow pulse of living architecture, cradled in the eternal patience of the coral architects and their magnificent, growing city beneath the waves. The mist parts like silk curtains as we ascend the ancient stone steps carved into the mountainside. Here, at 8,000 feet above the sea, the world transforms into something altogether different. The cloud forest stretches before us, wrapped in perpetual veils of white and silver, where droplets of moisture dance in the filtered sunlight and every breath tastes of rain and earth. Your fingers trace the topographic lines on the weathered map, following the contours that spiral upward into this mystical realm. The cartographer's careful notations speak of settlements among the canopy, of people who have learned to live with the sky itself as their nearest neighbor. As we step deeper into this suspended world, the familiar sounds of the earth below fade away, replaced by the gentle whisper of wind through fog-laden branches. The trees here are ancient giants, their trunks disappearing both up and down into the endless mist. Moss drapes every surface like emerald velvet, soft beneath your touch and heavy with captured clouds. The forest floor, when glimpsed through breaks in the fog, lies far below, a distant memory of solid ground. This is a world between worlds, neither fully of the earth nor of the sky. Through the swirling vapors, shapes begin to emerge. Bridges of woven vines and polished bamboo span the gaps between massive trunks, their surfaces slick with constant moisture, yet somehow never slippery beneath the feet of those who call this place home. The architecture here has evolved to embrace the eternal dampness rather than fight it. Walls curve like flowing water, channeling the perpetual mist into ingenious collection systems that feed crystal-clear pools carved from living wood. A figure appears on one of these aerial walkways, moving with the fluid grace of someone born to navigate this three-dimensional world. She wears garments that seem to float around her like captured clouds, fabrics that shimmer with collected dewdrops and never quite seem dry, yet never appear uncomfortable. Her feet are bare, sure and silent on the wet wood, and when she smiles in greeting, her voice carries the same soft cadence as the wind through leaves. She beckons you to follow, leading deeper into the community that exists in these heights. Homes nest in the broad forks of ancient branches, their rounded walls breathing with the movement of the trees in the wind. Windows are open arches that welcome the mist inside, where it pools in shallow basins carved from root and burl, creating natural humidifiers that keep the air sweet and fresh. The people you encounter move with unhurried purpose through their vertical village. Children play games of hide-and-seek among the fog banks, their laughter echoing softly through the mist like wind chimes made of memory. Elderly craftspeople weave baskets from moss and vine, their fingers working by touch as much as sight in the ever-shifting light. Everyone speaks in hushed tones, as if understanding that loud sounds would disturb the delicate balance of their cloud-wrapped world. In the heart of the settlement, you discover a gathering place built around the crown of the largest tree. Here, the fog swirls in slow spirals, creating ever-changing patterns of light and shadow. The cloud forest dwellers have learned to read these patterns like others might read books, finding messages in the dance of vapor and sunshine. They speak of weather that will come days hence, of the health of distant groves, of the subtle communications that travel on currents of air too gentle for outsiders to perceive. As afternoon deepens toward evening, the mist begins to glow with captured sunlight, transforming the entire forest into a cathedral of soft gold and silver. The dwellers gather for their evening ritual, sitting in comfortable silence as they watch the daily transformation of their world. The fog shifts and flows, revealing glimpses of distant peaks one moment, concealing them the next, as if the mountains themselves are playing a gentle game of revelation and mystery. When it comes time to rest, you are offered a sleeping alcove carved into the curve of a great branch, lined with moss so soft it feels like sleeping on clouds themselves. The walls curve around you protectively, and through the open archway, you can watch the mist flow past like a slow river of dreams. The sounds of the night forest are muffled and distant, creating a cocoon of perfect peace. As sleep begins to claim you, you understand why the Mapmaker marked this place with such reverence in his atlas. The cloud forest dwellers have discovered something precious here among the mists, something that cannot be captured in mere topographic lines. They have learned to live not just with uncertainty, but within it, finding beauty and comfort in a world that is never quite the same from one moment to the next. The fog whispers lullabies through the branches, and you drift off to sleep, cradled in the arms of clouds, dreaming of a world where the earth touches the sky and mystery is simply another word for home. The evening sun casts long, golden shadows across the storyteller's crossroads as you arrive, your feet grateful to find level ground after days of winding mountain paths. This place appears on few maps, yet every traveler knows of it. A gentle convergence where 5 ancient trade routes meet in a natural amphitheater of rolling hills and whispering grasslands. Smoke rises from dozens of small fires scattered throughout the valley, each one a gathering point where voices blend with the crackling of burning wood. The air carries the mingled scents of roasting vegetables, brewing tea, and the sweet smoke of aromatic woods from distant forests. Somewhere, a flute plays a melody that seems to dance with the evening breeze. You make your way down the gentle slope, passing clusters of weathered travelers who nod in greeting. Their faces bear the marks of many journeys: sun-weathered skin, eyes that hold distant horizons, hands that know the weight of walking sticks, and the comfort of well-worn packs. Yet there's a lightness here, a sense of homecoming that touches even the most solitary wanderer. The crossroads themselves are marked not by grand monuments, but by 5 ancient stones, each worn smooth by countless hands. Carved into their surfaces are symbols from languages both familiar and forgotten: arrows pointing toward distant cities, sun marks indicating days of travel, and wave patterns that speak of rivers crossed and oceans glimpsed. You settle near a fire where an elderly woman with silver hair braided with small bells shares bread with a young merchant whose wagon bears goods from the spice lands. Across the flames, a ship captain with salt still in his beard sketches maps in the dirt with a piece of charcoal, showing a group of wide-eyed children the shape of islands they'll never see. Every road leads here eventually, the silver-haired woman says, offering you a cup of tea that steams with herbs you cannot name. Not because we're at the center of the world, but because we're at the center of stories. And stories, well, they have a way of calling to each other. As darkness deepens, the individual conversations begin to merge into something larger. A storyteller rises from each fire, not appointed or chosen, but drawn by some invisible current that moves through gatherings like this. They move to the center of the crossroads, where the ancient stones form a natural speaking circle. The first tells of a city built entirely on bridges, where people live suspended above a lake, so clear you can see clouds reflected in its depths. Her voice carries the rhythm of water lapping against wooden posts, and you can almost feel the gentle sway of a home that moves with the wind. Another speaks of a forest where the trees grow in perfect spirals, and the sound of wind through their twisted branches creates music that changes with the seasons. His words paint autumn mornings when golden leaves fall like musical notes, and winter nights when bare branches sing lullabies to sleeping snow. A third storyteller, her voice soft as distant thunder, describes mountains that glow with their own inner light, not harsh or blinding, but warm as candlelight, visible only to travelers who have lost their way and need guidance home. She speaks of following that gentle radiance through blizzards and fog, of the comfort found in trusting light that asks for nothing in return. The stories flow one into another, each tale a thread in a tapestry that grows richer with every voice. You find yourself leaning back against your pack, surrounded by faces illuminated by firelight, all of you held in the same gentle spell of shared wonder. Between stories, there are moments of comfortable silence filled with the small sounds of night: the distant call of an owl, the rustle of grass in the evening breeze, the soft crackling of fires settling into coals. These pauses feel as important as the words, spaces where each tale can settle into memory like seeds taking root. As the night deepens, Some travelers spread their blankets beneath the stars, while others continue the quiet exchange of stories in smaller groups around dying fires. There's no urgency here. No need to reach anywhere else by morning. The crossroads exist outside of time, a place where the journey itself becomes the destination. You pull your own blanket closer and listen to the gentle murmur of voices carrying on the night air. Tomorrow, these paths will scatter the gathered travelers to every corner of the world, each carrying new stories to share at distant hearths. But tonight, in this peaceful convergence of roads and dreams, all journeys pause in the simple pleasure of tales told under starlight. The last thing you hear before sleep takes you is the soft sound of pages turning somewhere in the darkness. Perhaps another traveler reading by firelight, or maybe just the wind moving through the Mapmaker's atlas, turning to charts of places where stories are born. In the amber light of dawn, you turn to chapter 28 of the ancient atlas, where delicate brushstrokes reveal a vast expanse of golden sand, punctuated by curious structures that gleam like jewels against the desert floor. The solar harvesters, as they call themselves, have made their home in this seemingly barren landscape, transforming the harsh embrace of the sun into the very foundation of their peaceful existence. The village spreads before you like a constellation of burnished copper and glass, each dwelling crowned with arrays of polished mirrors that catch and redirect the morning light with gentle precision. These are not the harsh, industrial panels you might imagine, but works of art carved from local sandstone and fitted with sheets of carefully ground crystal that shimmer with an inner fire. The harvesters have learned to work with their environment rather than against it, creating technology that breathes with the rhythm of the desert itself. As you study the intricate diagrams, you can almost feel the warmth of the morning sun on your face. The Mapmaker has captured not just the physical structures, but the very essence of how these people live. Children play in the shade of massive solar collectors, shaped like desert flowers, their metal petals adjusting throughout the day to follow the sun's arc across the cloudless sky. The soft whisper of these mechanisms creates a gentle metallic song that serves as the village's natural rhythm, a percussion of progress that never grows harsh or demanding. The heart of each home contains what the harvesters call a crystalline chamber, where concentrated sunlight is stored as liquid light, glowing with the soft amber of trapped sunshine. These wells provide warmth through the cool desert nights, power for their simple machines, and even light for their evening gatherings. The technology is elegant in its simplicity, requiring no rare materials or complex manufacturing, only the patient craft of hands that understand both stone and light. You trace the pathways between buildings with your finger, noting how each structure is positioned to create natural shade for its neighbor during the harshest hours of midday. The community gardens flourish in these protected spaces, where vegetables and herbs grow in carefully tended plots irrigated by water distilled from the very air, using the gentle heat of their solar collectors. Nothing is wasted here, every ray of sunlight serving multiple purposes in an endless cycle of renewal. The Mapmaker's detailed annotations describe the morning ritual that begins each day in this desert community. As the first light touches the eastern horizon, the villagers emerge from their homes to tend their light gardens, not gardens of plants, but arrays of mirrors and crystals that must be cleaned and adjusted with the same care a farmer might show to crops. This daily communion with their technology is performed in comfortable silence, each person moving with practiced grace through their assigned section of the solar field. The children learn from their earliest years to read the language of light and shadow, understanding how the angle of the sun changes with the seasons and how to predict the weather by the quality of the morning sky. Their education is not found in books, but in the patient observation of natural patterns, in the gentle hum of the solar collectors, and in the warm glow of the sun wells that light their evening meals. As the day progresses in this captured moment of time, you can sense the unhurried pace of life that the constant presence of abundant energy allows. There is no rush here, no frantic competition for scarce resources. The sun rises each morning with reliable generosity, and the harvesters receive its gift with equal measures of gratitude and skill. The evening gatherings are legendary among the desert peoples, when families come together in courtyards lit by the soft golden glow of stored sunlight. Musicians play instruments powered by solar energy, creating melodies that seem to capture the very essence of the desert wind. Storytellers share tales illuminated by dancing patterns of light projected on smooth stone walls, their voices carrying easily through the warm, still air. The atlas shows how even their art reflects their relationship with the sun's sculptures of polished metal that create different patterns of light and shadow throughout the day. Paintings that incorporate actual stored sunlight into their pigments, and textiles woven with threads that shimmer with captured solar energy. As night finally claims the desert, the village doesn't fall into darkness, but glows with the gentle warmth of the day's gathered sunshine. The sun wells provide a soft, amber illumination that creates pools of comfortable light throughout the community, allowing life to continue at its peaceful pace even after the sun has disappeared behind distant dunes. In this harmony of technology and nature, the solar harvesters have found not just survival, but a profound contentment that radiates from every carefully drawn line in the Mapmaker's loving documentation. High in the misty peaks of the Whispering Mountains, where clouds drift between ancient stone towers like gentle spirits, stands the monastery of echoing bells. The Mapmaker's parchment unfolds before us, revealing architectural drawings of this sacred refuge, delicate ink lines showing how the builders positioned each bell tower with mathematical precision, designed to catch and carry sound across the valleys below. As dawn breaks over the monastery walls, the first bell begins its morning song. Brother Thomas pulls the thick rope with practiced hands, and the bronze bell responds with a deep, resonant tone that rolls across the mountain slopes like liquid gold. The sound travels down through pine forests and rocky ravines, awakening the valley with its gentle voice. But this is only the beginning. As Thomas's bell fades into silence, Brother Marcus takes up his rope 3 towers away. His bell speaks in a higher voice, creating a harmony that seems to dance with the echoes of the first. The Mapmaker's notes explain how the medieval architects studied the mountains themselves, measuring the precise distances needed for each bell to complement the others. One by one, the brothers join this morning symphony. Brother Benedict's bell adds its middle voice from the eastern tower. Brother Augustine contributes his bass tones from the southern wall. Each man knows exactly when to begin, when to pause, when to let the mountain itself become part of their music. The timing has been perfected over generations, passed down from master to novice like a sacred trust. You find yourself standing in the monastery's central courtyard as this daily miracle unfolds around you. The stone walls, worn smooth by centuries of weather, seem to hum with sympathetic vibrations. The bells don't simply ring. They converse with one another, creating melodies that shift and change as the echoes bounce between the peaks. Sometimes the harmonies are simple and clear, like a lullaby. Other moments bring complex counterpoint that would challenge the greatest composers. The brothers move through their morning routine with unhurried grace. Some tend the herb gardens that cascade down the mountainside in careful terraces. Others work in the scriptorium, copying manuscripts by candlelight, their quills moving in rhythm with the distant chiming. The baker kneads tomorrow's bread while listening to the bells, timing his work to their ancient cadence. Brother Jerome, the bell master, explains how each bell has its own personality. The great bell in the central tower, cast 300 years ago, speaks with the voice of thunder when the occasion calls for it, yet can whisper like wind through leaves for the evening prayers. The smallest bell, barely larger than a man's fist, contributes bright silver notes that seem to laugh with joy. As morning progresses into midday, the bell songs change their character. The calls to prayer are formal and measured, creating patterns that have remained unchanged for centuries. But during work hours, the brothers sometimes allow themselves more playful variations, musical conversations that seem to celebrate the simple pleasure of sound traveling through clean mountain air. The monastery's library contains careful notations of these bell sequences, preserved on parchments that show how different combinations create different moods. Spring mornings call for bright, ascending harmonies. Winter evenings prefer deep, warming tones that seem to hold back the cold. During harvest time, the bells ring with Thanksgiving rhythms that match the season's abundance. From your position in the courtyard, you can see how the monastery itself acts as a great musical instrument. The courtyards and corridors are designed to catch and focus certain tones. The dining hall resonates with middle frequencies, making grace before meals feel like part of a greater song. The chapel amplifies the higher notes, creating an atmosphere of ethereal beauty during sung prayers. As afternoon settles over the mountains, the bell calling becomes more subtle. Individual brothers ring their bells for personal meditation, creating gentle, random chimes that seem to float on the mountain breeze. These aren't coordinated performances, but spontaneous expressions of peace and gratitude. The sounds blend and separate, creating an ever-changing tapestry of metallic voices. The Mapmaker's drawings show how sound travels through this landscape. Curved lines indicating how the mountain walls shape and direct each note. What begins as a simple bell ring transforms as it journeys through the valleys, gathering harmonics from stone faces and forest clearings, arriving in distant villages as something richer and more complex than when it began. Evening brings the most beautiful music of all. As the sun disappears behind western peaks, the bells sing their final chorus together. The harmony builds slowly, each voice joining at its appointed moment, creating a sound that seems to embrace the entire mountain range. The music fades gradually, the echoes growing softer and more distant until only silence remains, and the monastery settles into peaceful night, ready to begin the cycle anew when morning comes. In the heart of a forgotten realm lies a body of water so vast that sailors speak of it in whispers, calling it the Endless Lake. Here, where morning mist rises like silk scarves from waters that stretch beyond every horizon, generations of fishing families have made their home not on solid ground, but floating gently upon the lake's generous surface. The first light of dawn finds you drifting among their floating villages, watching as lanterns flicker to life in windows of homes that sway with the gentle rhythm of the water. These dwellings, crafted from weathered wood and sealed with oils drawn from lake plants, bob peacefully like sleeping swans. Each house is connected to its neighbors by walkways of woven reeds that flex and breathe with every subtle movement of the lake. You hear the soft splash of oars as the day's fishing begins. The fishermen of the Endless Lake do not race against time or compete for the richest waters. Instead, they move with deliberate calm, their boats gliding silently across the mirror-smooth surface. Their vessels are works of art in themselves, curved and elegant, painted in soft blues and greens that seem to borrow their colors from the lake itself. An elderly fisherman named Kale guides his boat near yours, his weathered hands steady on the tiller. His face, lined by decades of gentle sunlight reflecting off the water, carries the serene expression of one who has found perfect harmony with his world. He shows you the ancient charts his family has kept for 7 generations, maps drawn on fish skin that mark not just the deepest waters, but the seasonal migrations of the lake's inhabitants, the locations of underwater forests where certain fish prefer to rest, and the sacred spawning grounds that remain forever untouched. The fishing here is an art of patience and respect. You watch as Kale lowers his nets with practiced grace, the weighted edges sinking slowly through layers of crystal clear water. These nets are woven from fibers of lake grass, designed to catch only what is needed while allowing the young and the breeding fish to pass through unharmed. The fishermen take only what the lake offers freely, understanding that abundance comes not from taking much, but from taking wisely. As the sun climbs higher, painting golden paths across the water's surface, you witness the quiet social rituals that bind this floating community together. Children paddle between houses in tiny coracle boats, their laughter carrying across the water like the calls of lake birds. Women tend floating gardens where they grow water vegetables and herbs, their practiced hands knowing exactly how much root should be beneath the surface and how much leaf should reach toward the sky. The afternoon brings the gentle ceremony of the catch's return. You float among the fishermen as they meet in a natural bay formed by floating houses, their boats forming a loose circle on the calm water. Each family shares news of their morning's journey, speaking in voices soft as the lapping of waves. They exchange portions of their catch according to ancient customs, ensuring that every household, from the newest arrivals to the eldest residents who can no longer cast nets, receives their share of the lake's bounty. You notice how completely these people have adapted to their watery world. They walk with the easy balance of those born to floating homes. Their clothing is made from fabrics that dry quickly and shed water naturally. Even their food reflects their environment, with every meal celebrating some gift from the lake, prepared with herbs grown in their floating gardens and seasoned with salts crystallized from the lake's mineral-rich waters. As evening approaches and the sun begins to sink toward the endless horizon, you find yourself drawn into the day's most peaceful ritual. The fishermen gather their boats into loose formations, families floating together as they share their evening meal upon the water. The lake becomes a vast dining room lit by hundreds of gentle lanterns, their light dancing on the ripples created by the slow movement of boats and the occasional rising of a fish to kiss the surface. The children fall asleep in boats, cushioned with soft wool, rocked by the eternal motion of their watery world. The adults speak quietly among themselves, their voices blending with the gentle sounds of water against hulls and the distant calls of night birds. Here, on this endless expanse of fresh water, you understand what it means to live in true harmony with the natural world. As you drift among them in the gathering darkness, wrapped in the profound peace of the endless lake, you feel your own breathing slow to match the rhythm of the gentle waves, your heartbeat aligning with the ancient pulse of this floating paradise, where time moves as slowly and surely as the stars reflecting in the boundless waters around you. You spread the worn parchment across the wooden table, its edges soft from countless gentle hands that have traced these same paths before you. The map reveals itself slowly in the lamplight, a city unlike any other, where emerald vines cascade down towering walls and golden wheat waves from rooftop gardens high above bustling streets. Your fingers trace the careful ink lines that mark the garden city of vertical farms, and you can almost smell the rich earth and growing things that fill every corner of this remarkable place. The Mapmaker has drawn delicate tendrils curling around building foundations, marking where sweet potato vines embrace the very bones of the architecture. Each structure rises not just with stone and timber, but with life itself woven into its walls. You close your eyes and let the map transport you to the city's main thoroughfare. Here, morning sunlight filters through a canopy of tomato plants that grow along specially designed trellises spanning from building to building. The gentle click of your footsteps on smooth cobblestones mingles with the soft rustle of leaves above. Drops of dew from the overhead gardens catch the early light like tiny prisms, casting rainbow fragments across the path beneath your feet. The air is impossibly fresh for a city, carrying the green scent of growing herbs and the sweet perfume of flowering beans that climb the walls in spiral patterns. You pause beside a fountain where water bubbles gently upward, nourishing rings of lettuce and spinach that grow in terraced circles around its base. Children's laughter echoes softly from somewhere nearby, perhaps from the playground where swing sets are nestled beneath apple trees heavy with fruit. Walking deeper into the city, you marvel at how every surface serves a purpose beyond mere shelter. The southern faces of buildings wear thick coats of winter squash vines, their broad leaves creating natural cooling in the summer heat. Narrow windows peek through gaps in the foliage like sleepy eyes, while small balconies overflow with cascading cherry tomatoes and trailing nasturtiums in shades of gold and orange. You turn down a quieter side street where the walls are painted with climbing pea shoots, their delicate tendrils reaching toward the sun. Here, the city's gentle hum grows softer, the distant sound of water flowing through irrigation channels, the barely audible whisper of wind through grain stalks that grow in rooftop fields high above. An elderly man tends to a patch of herbs growing in a spiral pattern around a lamppost, his movements slow and practiced as he pinches back the mint to encourage new growth. The map shows you rooftop terraces connected by gentle bridges, and you imagine climbing the worn stone steps to reach these aerial gardens. Up here, the city spreads below you like a tapestry, woven from every shade of green imaginable. Wheat fields stretch across the flat rooftops in golden rectangles, interrupted by groves of dwarf fruit trees and meandering paths lined with lavender. The breeze carries the scent of ripening grain and the distant sound of bees humming among the rooftop flowers. As evening approaches, you follow the map's guidance to a quiet courtyard where residents gather to share the day's harvest. Long tables hewn from local wood groan gently under the weight of abundance. Baskets of ruby tomatoes still warm from the sun, bundles of herbs tied with grass, loaves of bread baked from grain that grew just overhead. The conversation flows as gently as honey, voices soft with contentment and gratitude for another day in their vertical paradise. The map reveals one final secret: a central tower where the city's master gardeners maintain seed libraries and growing guides passed down through generations. Climbing the spiral staircase, you imagine walls lined with tiny drawers labeled in careful script, each containing the genetic memory of plants that have learned to thrive in this unique urban ecosystem. As you reach the tower's peak, the entire garden city spreads below you in the gathering dusk. Lights begin to twinkle in windows surrounded by flowering vines, and the scent of evening jasmine mingles with the earthy smell of soil settling into nighttime rest. Somewhere in the distance, water trickles through irrigation channels, feeding the roots that hold this green city together. You roll the map carefully, feeling the weight of this peaceful vision in your hands. In the garden city of vertical farms, humanity has learned to live in harmony with the growing world, creating abundance not through conquest of the land, but through gentle partnership with the patient, nurturing forces of growth and renewal. The map promises that such places exist, waiting to be discovered by those who seek a different way of being in the world. The morning sun casts long shadows across the high plains as our expedition reaches the edge of the Great Plateau. Here, where the earth meets an endless sky, we encounter one of the most patient civilizations ever documented. The wind sculptors have made their home on these windswept heights for over 1,000 years, crafting their world with nothing more than careful observation and an ancient understanding of the air itself. The plateau stretches before us like a natural gallery, its surface adorned with flowing curves and spiraling formations that seem impossible for nature to have created alone. Yet, as we watch, we begin to understand the gentle artistry at work here. The wind sculptors do not carve with chisels or move earth with heavy machinery. Instead, they guide the constant prairie winds, redirecting their paths with carefully placed stone barriers and woven grass screens. An elderly sculptor named Kira approaches our group, her weathered hands gesturing toward a formation that resembles a frozen wave. "My great-grandmother began this piece," she explains, her voice carrying easily on the breeze. "I have spent my lifetime refining its curves, and my granddaughter will continue the work long after I am gone." The stone ripples and flows as if the wind itself had learned to paint with earth and time. We follow Kira along a well-worn path that curves between the sculptures. Each formation tells a story written in wind patterns and patient years. Some pieces rise like gentle towers, their surfaces smoothed to silk by decades of directed airflow. Others spread low across the ground, creating natural amphitheaters where the wind sings in harmonious tones as it passes through carefully calculated openings. The sculptors work in harmony with the seasons. Kira explains, during the fierce winter winds, they position large screens to concentrate the air's power, slowly wearing away unwanted stone. In spring, when the breezes blow gentle and warm, they use delicate mesh barriers to create subtle textures and fine details. Summer brings the steady trade winds that smooth and polish their work, while autumn's shifting patterns add final touches that will last through the coming year. We pause at a workshop where younger sculptors practice their craft on smaller stones. Children as young as 6 learn to read the wind's moods, watching how grass bends and dust swirls to understand the invisible currents that flow across their homeland. They begin with simple projects, learning to create smooth pebbles and gentle curves before graduating to the complex calculations needed for larger works. The tools of their trade are remarkably simple. Woven screens made from prairie grass can be adjusted to different densities, creating everything from gentle guidance to focused pressure. Stone barriers, some no more than knee-high, redirect powerful gusts with minimal effort. Water-filled channels help them predict how air will flow around their sculptures, the ripples on the surface mapping the invisible patterns above. As afternoon arrives, we witness the daily ritual of adjustment. The sculptors move through their gallery with quiet purpose, shifting screens by mere inches, adding or removing small stones from their barriers. These tiny changes will alter the wind's path just slightly, but over months and years, they create profound transformations in the sculptures themselves. The sound of the wind through the formations creates a constant, gentle symphony. Some sculptures produce deep, resonant tones, while others sing in higher pitches as air flows through their carefully designed openings. The entire plateau hums with natural music, a composition that changes subtly with the weather and the season, but always maintains its peaceful harmony. We spend the evening in the sculptor's village, built low and curved to blend seamlessly with their windswept environment. The houses themselves are works of art, their walls shaped by the same patient techniques used on the larger sculptures. Windows and doorways are positioned to create comfortable breezes that cool the interiors naturally, while exterior walls deflect the stronger winds away from living spaces. As stars begin to appear in the vast sky above, Kira shares the deeper philosophy of her people. "The wind teaches patience," she says, her voice soft in the gathering dusk. "We cannot force it to do our bidding, only invite it to dance with our vision." Each sculpture is a conversation between human dreams and natural forces, a collaboration that spans generations. The night brings a gentle breeze that sets the sculptures singing their evening song, a lullaby that has soothed countless generations of wind sculptors. In this place where art and nature merge so completely, time itself seems to flow as smoothly as the shaped stone, carrying us forward on currents as ancient and enduring as the wind itself. The morning light filters through leaves so ancient They seem to hold whispers of forgotten centuries. You walk along a path worn smooth by countless footsteps, each one placed with reverence and care. This is the sacred grove, where time moves differently, where every breath tastes of earth and growing things. The keepers have been here for generations, their lives intertwined with these towering trees like roots seeking water. You can see them now, moving between the massive trunks with the quiet grace of those who know they are guests in a living cathedral. Their clothing is simple, woven from fibers that grow wild at the forest's edge, dyed in the soft greens and browns that echo the world around them. An elderly woman kneels beside a sapling, no taller than your knee. Her hands, weathered and gentle, brush away fallen leaves from its base. She speaks to it in a voice barely above a whisper, words in an old language that sounds like wind through branches. This small tree, she tells you without looking up, is the great-grandchild of the ancient mother. A tree so old its hollow trunk could shelter a dozen people. The sapling will not see its full height for 300 years, but she tends it as carefully as if it were her own child. The path curves deeper into the grove, and you notice how the air itself seems different here. It's thick with moisture and the sweet scent of decomposing leaves, rich with the breath of countless plants. Shafts of golden light pierce the canopy far above, creating pools of warmth on the forest floor where ferns unfurl their delicate fronds like green prayers. A young man emerges from behind a cluster of silver birch trees, carrying a leather satchel filled with seeds. He moves with the unhurried patience that marks all the keepers, stopping frequently to examine the soil, to touch the bark of familiar trees, to listen to sounds only he can interpret. These seeds, collected from the grove itself, will be planted according to patterns mapped out by his ancestors. A living geometry that ensures the forest remains balanced and whole. You follow him to a clearing where several keepers work together, their movements synchronized like a gentle dance. They are preparing the soil for a new planting. But this is not the aggressive turning of earth you might expect. Instead, they work with small tools, loosening the ground with care, adding compost made from the grove's own fallen leaves, creating space for new life without disturbing the existing web of roots that connects every tree to every other. The oldest keeper, a man whose beard has grown white as birch bark, approaches with a collection of rolled papers. These are the botanical maps that guide their work, intricate drawings that show not just where each tree stands now, but where each should stand in decades and centuries to come. The maps are works of art as much as science, decorated with careful illustrations of leaves and flowers, marked with symbols that indicate soil conditions, water flow, and the mysterious pathways that nutrients follow through the forest community. He spreads one map on a flat stone, weighing down its corners with smooth pebbles. You can see the sacred grove as it exists in layers of time. The trees that are here now marked in dark green ink, those that will be planted this year in lighter shades, and those planned for future generations drawn in the faintest lines, like promises made to children not yet born. The afternoon passes in this quiet rhythm of tending and planning. You watch as keepers check the health of ancient oaks, their trunks so wide that 5 people holding hands could not circle them. Others gather medicinal herbs that grow in the grove's understory, taking only what they need and leaving the rest to flourish. A group of children follows an elderly woman as she teaches them to read the signs of seasonal change, which mushrooms appear first after rain, how the angle of light reveals the best places for new growth. As evening approaches, the keepers begin to gather in a natural amphitheater formed by a circle of massive trees. They do not speak of their day's work in terms of accomplishment or progress. Instead, they share observations. The first spring flowers blooming near the eastern edge, the family of deer that has made its home in the northern thickets, the way yesterday's rain has awakened seeds that have waited years for the perfect moment to grow. The sacred grove, breathes around you as darkness settles. The keepers fade quietly into their simple dwellings, built so carefully into the landscape that they seem to grow from the forest floor itself. The trees continue their ancient work of growing, of reaching towards stars you can glimpse through the canopy above, of adding one more ring to trunks that measure time not in years, but in centuries. Here, in this place where human hands serve the greater wisdom of the forest, you understand what it means to live as part of something infinitely larger than yourself. The ancient chart before you shimmers with frost-touched ink, depicting a realm where winter never ends. Your fingers trace the delicate lines that map the Ice Palace civilization, a people who have transformed the harshest cold into their greatest strength. The parchment feels cool beneath your touch, as if the very essence of their frozen world seeps through the paper. Here, in the far reaches of the eternal north, crystalline spires rise like frozen prayers toward pale skies. The Ice Palace dwellers have learned to sculpt their homes from the very element that might defeat others. Each dwelling curves and flows with organic grace, carved from blocks of ice so clear they seem made of captured moonlight. The walls glow softly, lit from within by warm oil lamps that cast dancing shadows through the translucent architecture. You drift closer to their world, through the Mapmaker's careful notations. The settlements spread across the tundra like clusters of jewels, connected by pathways worn smooth by countless footsteps. Steam rises gently from carefully tended hot springs, the lifeblood of their civilization. Around these natural warmth sources, the community gathers, their voices carrying on the crisp air like distant wind chimes. The dwelling places fascinate you most. Each ice palace begins as a single room, carved with patient precision from massive blocks. But these are not crude shelters. They are works of art. The Ice Palace dwellers understand their medium completely. They know which ice will hold, which will let light pass through, which will insulate against the bitter winds. Interior walls flow with carved reliefs depicting their history, their stories frozen in time like amber capturing ancient moments. Within these crystalline homes, surprising warmth awaits. Thick furs line the floors in rich layers of brown and white and silver. Central fire bowls burn with carefully tended flames, their heat radiating through specially designed vents carved into the ice walls. The architecture itself becomes a heating system, channels and chambers directing warm air throughout each dwelling. The ice walls, rather than melting, remain perfectly stable, their thickness providing insulation that keeps the interiors comfortably warm. You observe their daily rhythms through the Mapmaker's detailed annotations. Morning brings the gentle sound of ice chimes that hang from every doorway, their crystalline notes calling families to gather. Children emerge from sleeping alcoves carved into the walls, their footsteps muffled by the soft furs. The adults begin their day by checking the thermal vents, ensuring the delicate balance of temperature that keeps their homes both solid and warm. Food preparation reveals another marvel of their adaptation. Special ice cellars, carved deeper into the permafrost, preserve their stores perfectly. They have learned to work with the cold rather than fight it. Soups simmer in metal pots suspended over their central fires, the aromas of preserved vegetables and rich broths filling the crystal chambers. Fermented foods, kept at perfect temperatures by the controlled environment, provide essential nutrients through the endless winter. Their craftsmanship extends beyond mere survival. The Ice Palace dwellers are artists of their element. They carve intricate sculptures that serve as both beauty and function. Ice chairs that perfectly fit the human form, tables that never wobble, storage chests with lids that fit so precisely they seal out moisture completely. Their tools are masterworks of adaptation, designed specifically for working with their chosen medium. Community life flows through their settlements like warmth itself. Extended families share connected dwelling complexes, rooms linked by carved corridors lined with soft pelts. Communal spaces host evening gatherings where stories are shared, and songs echo off the ice walls in haunting harmonies. Children learn their craft early, small hands guided by patient elders in the art of reading ice, understanding its moods and possibilities. The springs that warm their settlements become centers of social life. Natural pools carved and refined by generations provide spaces for bathing and gathering. The contrast delights you people moving between the bitter cold and these oases of warmth, their faces flushed and content, their laughter carrying across the frozen landscape like bells. As night settles over their realm, the true beauty of their world emerges. Aurora lights dance across the sky, their colors reflecting and refracting through the ice architecture until each dwelling becomes a prism, casting rainbow patterns across the snow. The warm light from within each home creates a constellation on the ground, golden windows glowing against the crystalline walls. The Mapmaker's final notation speaks of their deepest wisdom. They have learned that true warmth comes not from fighting the cold, but from embracing it completely. Their mastery lies not in conquering their environment, but in becoming so perfectly adapted to it that winter itself becomes their ally. The chart slowly fades back to ordinary parchment as your journey through their realm concludes. But the image remains a civilization that found beauty in the harshest places, warmth in the coldest seasons, and community in the most isolated corners of the world. Their ice palaces stand as monuments to human ingenuity and the endless capacity to find home wherever we might land. The first pale fingers of dawn slip through the tall windows of Aldrich's workshop, casting gentle golden rectangles across the worn wooden floor. Dust motes dance lazily in the early morning light, swirling like tiny planets in their own quiet universe. The Mapmaker sits at his ancient desk, his weathered hands resting on the final page of his great atlas, a page he has turned to countless times, yet never truly seen until this moment. Before him lies a simple map, drawn in faded brown ink on yellowed parchment. Unlike the elaborate charts of distant kingdoms and mystical realms that fill the preceding pages, this one depicts something achingly familiar. His own monastery, the surrounding apple orchards, the winding path that leads to the village below. The bell tower rises like a gentle sentinel in the corner of the map, its shadow stretching across the courtyard, where Brother Marcus tends his herb garden each morning. Aldrich traces the familiar lines with one finger, following the curved stone walls that have sheltered him for 30 years. Here is the scriptorium, where he first learned to mix his inks. There, the refectory where he shares quiet meals with his fellow monks, their conversations soft as whispered prayers. The map shows every beloved detail. The ancient oak tree whose branches tap against his workshop window during storms, the small pond where goldfish swim in lazy circles, the worn steps leading up to the chapel where morning prayers echo like gentle music. As the morning light grows stronger, something profound settles over Aldrich's understanding. This final map is not merely a drawing of his home. It is the keystone of his entire life's work. All those distant realms he has so lovingly charted, all those peaceful civilizations he has preserved in ink and memory, they are connected to this simple place by invisible threads of harmony and purpose. The monastery itself is one of those gentle havens, no different from the crystal cities of the northern glaciers or the floating gardens of the eastern seas. Here, too, people live in quiet cooperation. Brother Thomas kneads bread before sunrise, filling the corridors with the warm scent of yeast and flour. Sister Catherine illuminates manuscripts with delicate gold leaf, her brush strokes as precise as prayers. The old abbot walks the gardens each evening, his footsteps marking a rhythm as ancient and comforting as the turning seasons. Aldrich realizes now that he has been more than a collector of maps. He has been a guardian of something precious and fragile. Each chart in his atlas represents not just a place, but a way of being in the world, a choice to create beauty rather than destroy it, to build bridges rather than walls, to speak softly rather than shout. These forgotten realms exist not only in distant corners of the earth, but in every heart that chooses gentleness over force, wonder over cynicism. The morning bell begins to chime, its bronze voice rolling across the valley like a blessing. 7 clear notes, marking the hour for morning prayers. Aldrich closes the atlas gently, his palms pressing against the worn leather cover. The book feels different now, not heavy with the weight of accumulated knowledge, but light with the joy of understanding. All his years of careful documentation, all those nights spent bent over his desk by candlelight, have led to this moment of perfect clarity. He rises from his chair, joints creaking softly, and moves to the window. The valley spreads before him in the growing light, painted in shades of gold and green. Somewhere beyond the distant hills lie all those other peaceful places. The mountain villages where children learn ancient songs, the riverside settlements where festivals celebrate the turning of the year, the island communities where stories are passed from grandmother to granddaughter like precious heirlooms. But they are not so far away after all. They exist here, in this moment, in the choice to preserve rather than exploit, to document rather than dominate. Aldrich's workshop, with its careful maps and gentle purpose, is itself a small republic of peace in a world that often forgets the value of quiet things. As he prepares to join his brothers for morning prayers, Aldrich understands that his work will continue, though perhaps in ways he never imagined. The atlas will remain, a testament to all the gentle places that persist despite the passage of time. And he will remain too, a quiet guardian in a small corner of the world, tending his maps like a gardener tends his flowers, preserving the memory of harmony for all those who might need reminding that such places exist. The sun climbs higher, warming the stone walls of the monastery, and somewhere in the distance, a lark begins to sing. The first golden threads of dawn begin to weave themselves through the tall windows of Master Aldrich's workshop, casting long, gentle shadows across the worn wooden floors. The morning light touches the edges of his precious maps with a warmth that seems to breathe life into the carefully drawn borders and lovingly detailed coastlines that cover every surface of the room. Master Aldrich moves slowly, deliberately, his weathered hands treating each map with the reverence of a curator handling ancient treasure. The parchment whispers softly as he begins to roll the great map of the Jade Gardens, where he had spent countless evenings drawing the delicate bridges that arch over lotus-filled ponds. His fingers trace one final time the tiny symbols that mark the meditation pavilions, remembering how peaceful those imagined spaces felt as he created them stroke by careful stroke. The morning air carries the scent of lavender from the garden below, mingling with the familiar smell of ink and old paper that has perfumed this room for decades. Each breath seems to settle something deep within Master Aldrich's chest as he continues his quiet ritual of putting away the night's work. Next comes the chart of the Crystal Valleys, where mountain streams flow in perfect harmony through settlements of glassmakers and bellforgers. He had painted those waters in shades of blue so clear they seemed to sing. And now, as he rolls the map with infinite care, he can almost hear the gentle chiming that would drift across those peaceful communities at twilight. The leather map cases await, each one labeled in Aldrich's careful script. These containers have traveled with him in spirit to every corner of his imagined world. They are more than storage. They are vessels that have held his dreams, his wonder, his deep appreciation for the beauty that exists when communities live in harmony with their surroundings. As he slides the map of the singing forests into its protective case, Master Aldrich pauses to close his eyes. In his mind, he walks once more through those groves where the trees grow in natural amphitheaters, where village children gather to listen to stories told by traveling bards. The memory feels as real as any place he has ever visited with his own feet. The sunlight grows stronger now, warming the room with the promise of a peaceful day ahead. Master Aldrich's movements become even more unhurried as he tends to the map of the harbor of gentle tides. This had been one of his favorites to create a place where fishing boats return each evening to markets filled with laughter, where lighthouse keepers tend their beacons with pride, where every sunset paints the water in shades of contentment. One by one, the maps disappear into their cases, but the journeys they represent seem to expand rather than diminish. Each rolled parchment contains not just lines and symbols, but entire worlds of possibility, communities built on kindness, landscapes shaped by careful stewardship rather than conquest. Master Aldrich places the final case containing his beloved map of the mountain libraries, where scholars share knowledge freely, and every village has a reading garden onto the shelf with its companions. The workshop, now tidy and organized, feels different, not empty, but expectant, as if it too is settling into a well-deserved rest. He moves to his favorite chair by the window, the one worn smooth by years of contemplation. As he settles into its familiar embrace, Master Aldrich gazes out at the real world beyond his window, the cobblestone street, where neighbors greet each other with genuine warmth, the market square where vendors share stories along with their goods, the gardens where children play peacefully under the watchful eyes of loving parents. The realization comes to him slowly, like dawn itself. His imagined realms and this actual world are not so different. Both are places where beauty is treasured, where communities thrive through cooperation, where the greatest adventures are often the quietest ones, the daily acts of creation, preservation, and sharing that make life meaningful. Master Aldrich's eyes grow heavy as the morning sun bathes everything in its gentle glow. His breathing slows to match the peaceful rhythm of the awakening day. In his drowsy state, the boundaries between the mapped worlds and the real one blur in the most beautiful way. He has traveled farther than any explorer, visited more wonders than any adventurer, all while seated at his drawing table with ink-stained fingers and a heart full of curiosity. The greatest journey, he understands now as sleep begins to claim him, is the one that happens when we stop to truly see and appreciate the world around us. The morning light continues to fill the workshop, touching everything with the same gentle care that Master Aldrich brought to his maps, preserving this moment of perfect peace.